It's no secret now that the native people of Britain, in the respective countries that they call home, have been second-class citizens in said homes for a long time. The myriad of external threats that we face, in many instances, have outright taken over, ethnically cleansed and colonized many of our towns and cities. But who have been the chief villains and chief architects of this story? Who is ultimately to blame for every town or city that has been taken over and colonized? Who is ultimately to blame for every case of religiously motivated gang? Well, that lies solely at the feet, ladies and gentlemen, of our own governments. But as the native population begin to wake up, as the anger and discontent manifests more and more and more at their second-class treatment in pursuit of their ultimate eradication, the state has turned against them more and more and deployed every asset at their disposal against them, something my guest today knows all too well. My guest today, ladies and gentlemen, is Mr. Joe Marsh, a long-standing voice and figure in British and Welsh nationalist politics, having been involved in EDL, BNP, and Patriotic Alternative, to name a few of Britain's nationalist initiative.
You know, I started out, I joined the BNP years ago when I was like in my 20s. One of the first people when they set up the EDL. I've been with Patriotic Alternative as well. A lot of people know me in South Wales because I'm probably the most well-known far-right activist in South Wales, you know?
Having seen firsthand the destruction of communities like Tower Hamlets, which you can only say have been ethnically cleansed and colonized, Joe, like many, has tried to warn people about the dangers that are being posed by mass immigration, these diversity and multiculturalism initiatives, much to the chagrin of a government that is profiting massively off of the destruction of their own people.
I went to work on Canary Wharf when they were building that, and I saw the state of Tower Hamlets and London is horrific. I saw a lot of crime when I was up there, you know? In some of these areas, it was all the graffiti was foreign, and it was just horrific.
Rival groups of foreign gangs warring on Britain's soil for territory and the ever-lucrative drug trade that often result in innocent people and children getting caught in the crossfire. Not to mention, in many areas, how normalized these crimes have become. A 9-year-old girl getting caught in the crossfire of what appeared to be two gangs of rival Turkish people that were operating in London, like two rival Turkish gangs that were operating in London.
Albanians killing each other in the drug trade.
So really?
Yeah, there's been at least 2 murders in Cardiff of Albanians who've been killed by other Albanians over drugs. I walked down there one night and there's all these takeaways. And I went down to Tesco, went back, went down in the morning. There's all tape all around the Tesco, right? Like police tape. And on the floor, there's all circles drawn on the floor where they've drawn around, obviously, bullet casings, right?
The hypocrisy and seeming endless stream of left-wingers and liberals that are the first and loudest to champion the supposed success, utopia, that this multicultural paradise of Britain is, when in reality they live in some of the least diverse and most ethnically homogenous areas of the country. All the while, their people that are living in these areas could not be screaming for help any louder. A lot of the people then want to champion a lot of the left's initiatives like diversity, multiculturalism, all of these other things. You then look where they sort of live on the census data, and then you find out that they don't live in these areas. Where they don't live in they live in areas that are very predominantly ethnically homogenous.
Maybe they go down to the local corner shop and he's a lovely bloke and he gives them, you know, a bit of discount and this and that. And that's their experience of multiculturalism. And they think because of that, whole cities and areas need to be swamped.
How the police will do everything that they can to sow discord and create friction in your family to stifle your political activism. All the while, no crimes have been committed, and in many instances, these police are figuratively and potentially literally in bed with some of the worst people this country has ever known. A really good case where the police didn't do anything. It was the case of Ian Watkins, prolific paedophile, prolific Welsh paedophile, ex-lead singer of Lost Prophets, recently got stabbed to death in prison. And also Peter and Avril Griffiths as well. We've seen that the police are not only often just not willing to do anything, in many ways they're outright facilitating it, or worst case scenarios we've seen recently, potentially even involved in it.
We used to go to a pub called Bindles in Barry, right? And it's been knocked down now, right? But they were over there all the time. And one night, me and my mates, they invited us to a party on a boat. I got raided for the incite and racial hatred when I said that they should be searched before going on trains with rucksacks. My children were small then, they had their laptops together. Caused murder for me with her because she was going mental with me because she wasn't involved in anything that I do. The idea is that they want her to have a go at me, make my life hard so that I give up doing what I'm doing.
And some sage advice for the young men of this country who are going to be the ones tasked with saving it. For all of the browbeating, the demoralization, and the demonization of successive generations of nanny state government and hyper-vengeful feminists working hand in hand with them, it'll be down to you to save this country and ensure a future not only for yourself, but for your children and grandchildren and beyond.
If you've got a trade, if you're an electrician or a plumber or a chippy or whatever, right, you're bulletproof there, right? This is how I can do what I do. We live in such a tyranny here, you can be arrested for saying the wrong thing, you can lose your job, right? But people need to get themselves a trade, and then because I could move to Edinburgh tomorrow when I could get a job within days.
But it's something I wish that I had done growing up. No matter where you are, ladies and gentlemen, whether you live in a big city or a rural little Welsh town, you have a target on your back all the same. The target has been placed on your back by the traitors that we have in government. It's England today, it's Wales tomorrow. So if you want to grow up and prosper in the same country that your forefathers had and not have foreigners and foreign customs ruling over you, then stay tuned and be prepared to get active. This is Voice of the Valleys with Mr. Joe Marsh. Enjoy. Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome back to Voice of the Valleys with your host, and as you know, I dub myself every time I do one of these shows your friendly neighbourhood far-right thug, and that is a joke. If anybody from the Secret Service or anybody from the BBC is watching, it's just a joke. It's just a little bit of satire. Play on your friendly neighbourhood Spider-Man, Mr. George Cresswell. I've been looking forward to this interview. Conversation, ladies and gentlemen. As you know, I was up on the bridge over the A470 recently with a group of activists, and one of them is sitting down with me today. Mr. Joe Marsh goes by Welsh Nationalist Joe on YouTube, if you want to go and watch a lot of his content. He's been involved in Welsh nationalist politics and British nationalist politics for a hell of a long time. And after meeting him on the bridge, I have to get in contact with him. I want to learn more about, the Welsh nationalist political scene, what it's all about, so what the aims are, the political trajectory of Wales and Britain and so on. I thought Joe would be a great person to talk to. So thank you very much for sitting down with me, Joe. I really appreciate it. Would you mind just letting people know a little bit just about who you are? A little bit of an intro to yourself, please.
Well, my name's Joe Marsh. A lot of people know me in South Wales because I'm probably the most well-known far-right activist in South Wales, I've been doing it for a very long time, and, I started out, I joined the BNP years ago when I was in my 20s. I was one of the first people when they set up the EDL. I've just been an activist in one group or another. I've been with Patriotic Alternative as well. And I'm just people, there's been loads of activists in South Wales. They come and go, but I get the one constant thing is me. I'm always still here,
Mm-hmm. And how long have you been sort of in these? When did you first get started? I suppose sort of get involved in politics and so on in any one of these groups.
Well, the first group that I ever joined was a BNP, and when I was growing up, I didn't see a black person till I was about 12 years old, and then it was they started to arrive I was from Barry, and they started to arrive there. But like, I was a football hooligan when I was young. I wasn't interested in politics, and I didn't really have a problem until I went to London to work. I went to work on Canary Wharf when they were building that, and I saw the state of Tower Hamlets and London is horrific. And while I was up there, I saw a sticker for the BNP. And when I came back, I just couldn't stop thinking about how bad it was there, because literally, this was like in the 90s, and there was no white people there then, in some of these areas. It was all the graffiti was foreign, and it was just horrific. And like, people where I'm from in Barry, they had no idea, because they know the guy from the corner shop, and he's a nice guy, and they think, well, that's multiculturalism, and they've got a black friend, But when you go to these areas and you see how bad it is, and that, like, the newspaper up there, it was, at the time, it was called the South London Press. And like, while I was working in London, I was up there for a long time. Every time you pick up the paper, there was just attacks, stabbings, all sorts, right? And what's changed now? The only thing that's changed now is there's more of it. And, and no one ever asked the British people if they wanted this level of immigration. And this is why this is what I say, we were never asked. And every time this, through my lifestyle, all through my life, every time there's been an election, the British people have demanded that immigration is reduced. And every time they've just been lied to, and every time they fall for it again. They just change the thing. They change the angle, but it's the same thing of saying, we're going to do this, we're going to stop this, we're going to do that, we're going to reduce this. And it never happens. They just make mugs out of people every single time. And they're still doing it now, to this day. I've been around a long time, and I've seen it happen so many times, where people are like reading a newspaper and work, oh, they're going to stop immigration, And it's like, are you that thick? Are you really that stupid, like? It's unbelievable.
Yeah, and I've always found it to be like, they could put a stop to it, or they could implement the solutions they said they were going to tomorrow if they wanted to. Everything has been a concerted effort, as you said. It's people's wishes haven't been lied to. I think you mentioned this, is people haven't been asked, and when they have been asked, the vast majority have said that they at least wanted it. For example, when the Conservatives got in 2010, they at least wanted it reduced back down to like the levels of, I think it was like the 70s or the 60s, like back down to the tens of thousands. And then the next thing, you've got hundreds of thousands to million coming in every year. Up to, I think that was the peak of it, was about 1 million or so every year, even in counting the people that were leaving. And that's like the complete opposite of what people voted for. And obviously that's why the Conservatives are such a bad name nowadays. I think the origins of the problems you can trace back a lot further than that. But it's exactly as you mentioned with the areas, which Tower Hamlets was one I was going to bring this up. I'm glad you brought it up, because I don't know if you've seen recently. Have you seen that some of the representatives from Tower Hamlets are what is it? Campaigning to be part of the Bangladeshi Nationalist Party out in Bangladesh at the moment. Have you seen that?
No, I haven't seen that.
Yeah, no, I think it's some Tower Hamlets representatives are currently campaigning to be part of to represent the Bangladesh Nationalist Party out in Bangladesh. So when you say that these things, that immigration is at the heart of a lot of these things, and that's why an issue that I don't think a lot of people want to confront is that immigration, when we talk about all manner of other issues, NHS, social cohesion, whatever it is, cultural, usurpation, if you will, immigration is going to be at the heart of it. Have we got any like specifics of the things which you saw as well? Like, were there any specific standout events when you started going up to London to work and all of these things? Were there like specific standout events that you noticed like firsthand?
Well, the thing is I saw a lot of crime while I was up there, and like, I was working in Plasto at one stage, right? That's in East London. And I was decorating a house and I was staying in the house while I was decorating. And I had to go down to the town to get food every day from like Tesco and that. And I walked down there one night and there's all these takeaways. And I went down to Tesco, went back, went down in the morning. There's all tape all around the Tesco, right? Like police tape. And on the floor, there's all circles drawn on the floor where they've drawn around, obviously, bullet casings, right? And the people are just walking past, going to work. They're not even looking. They're not even stopping to look, right? Now, if that happened in your town or my town, everyone would be standing there rubbernecking, saying, oh my God, what's happened? It's such a common thing that people don't even look. It's just every day there's murders, right? And it's nothing to them, you know? And this is what it's like. And this is a long time ago, you know? So it's a million times worse now.
And that's where it you hear it from people who live in these areas, British people that live in these areas. And a lot of the people then want to champion a lot of the left's initiatives like diversity, multiculturalism, all of these other things. You then look where they sort of live on the census data, and then you find out that they don't live in these areas. They don't live in they live in areas that are very predominantly ethnically homogenous, that there's very few in terms of ethnic minority, and that I think a lot of people's tunes would change. And that's why I'm very sympathetic that despite being, as you said, in an area where, at least according to the last census data, it is extremely ethnically homogenous, in terms of the native people that live here. But even now, people are saying, just when it comes up in conversation, even people who vehemently disagree with me on a lot of political issues, are saying, like, I'm noticing more and more people I never noticed before. And that's why it's like, you see it in England, you see it in many of the big cities or whatever, and you see how much it's hit them and how much the culture and the people have been usurped and in many ways taken over. But then it's more of like a trickle down into communities like mine where it's a lot harder to notice. And that's where I think a lot of people, they just fall into these naturally sort of progressive, left-leaning, thought bubbles, so to speak. And the school system is very keen to provide them with that, train of thought. I don't know if you've seen where in schools in Wales nowadays and in schools in England, they like got some of their curriculum activities, which is like plot a course if you're coming from Syria all the way through Europe, try to avoid the border crossings, all of this stuff. It is really, really scary, the indoctrination that's been, drilled into them. And I think a lot of us are coming at it from the perspective, we see Tower Hamlets, we see London, we see Luton, we see all these other places. Like, can we not go down that road, please? I think that's where ultimately a lot of people's heads are at. How have you noticed things changing in Wales more specifically, though? So I see it in many ways sometimes a little bit harder to notice. We don't tend to have those key examples to point to a lot of the time.
Well, I worked for many years in Cardiff, right? And I was working on social housing in Cardiff, and I was doing Splot, Grangetown, Adamstown, and you see those areas changing. You drive through Grangetown when the schools are kicking out, right? 3-ish in the afternoon, and you could think that you were in India, right? Because there's thousands and thousands of school kids in uniforms, and none of them are white. A handful of them. It's literally, and like it was like that. It's always been like that in Cardiff, but it's getting worse and worse now. In Cardiff, like my missus went to Cardiff last week shopping, looking for something, and she said, "I haven't been in Cardiff for a while," and she said, "You want to see the state of Cardiff City Centre?" She said, "It's all foreigners," and she's not involved in any groups or anything. You know what I mean? She's not political, but she's just saying, "Oh my God, you want to see what Cardiff looks like?" And I said, "I haven't been there for ages. I can't stand Cardiff," But like Cardiff is, that's where we're going, because when I drive around the valleys, you see more and more and more now Afghans and Africans, and the Africans, loads of people message us, see, and tell us things. We've had people who work in the care industry They are importing Nigerians like it's gone out of fashion. They're ignoring British people who want jobs, and they are being paid to take Nigerians. And then when those Nigerians are coming here, they're allowed to bring their families as well. And it's like when you drive through some of the valleys, it stands out so much how many of them there are. And Bridgend is absolutely full of them. It's like if you drive around Bridgend town centre like on a Friday night, there's foreigners everywhere, you know. And the thing is, and I went for a meal in Swansea a while ago, and the Weatherspoons there is, I think it's called the Potter's Wheel, and it was full of like Eastern Europeans, and they were all outside sitting there drinking, and like I was just like gobsmacked of how many foreigners there were walking around the streets, and people are messaging me and say I walked from Swansea train station down to the town, and I hardly saw any Welsh people. And like people think I'm exaggerating. Go and have a look for yourself. Like, you know, it's like you can't go around filming these people because there's like families and it's not all men. It's just foreigners, you know. But like you can't go filming like you know what I said about Grangetown. You can't go filming school kids. You know what I mean? People need to go and have a look for themselves. But the thing is with these lefties, they all live in areas where there is no immigration. You know, and like I said, maybe they go down to the local corner shop and he's a lovely bloke and he gives them, you know, a bit of discount and this and that. And that's their experience of multiculturalism. And they think because of that, whole cities and areas need to be swamped, you know? And it's like nobody would have had a problem with immigration if it was small, but it's not. It's getting to the stage where like David Coleman from Oxford University said that the British people, the white British people, will be a minority in this country by 2060, right? And that was before the Boris wave and before all the people from Hong Kong were allowed here. And it's just escalated now. So it'll be a lot sooner, you know? And like, this is the UN's definition of a genocide. This is it. Because this is creating conditions of life where a race cannot reproduce itself and is going to be replaced by other races. That is literally a genocide. You know? Yet somehow, you know, I'm some sort of nutcase for saying these things. You know, I've had nothing but trouble in my life. It's only lately that more and more people, you know, awake to this because all these protests all around the country at the hotels and everything, right? Years ago, it was the same people. It was us. Like we've done. I've gone to protests in Southampton, Portsmouth, where there was 15 people. Now they've got protests where there's 1,000 people. You know, because people are waking up, you know, because things are getting that bad. You know, but for years it was just the usual suspects and people saying, "Oh yeah, Maggie, he's a nut on he's off his head." You know, but like I was saying this to people 30 odd years ago, we are going to become a minority in this country if things don't change and if we don't start reversing this. And people used to see off your head, that's never going to happen. You know, but it's happening right in front of our eyes. You know, and the whole state is down to crush us for trying to resist it. And like these people, these lefties, if you said, oh, there's a tribe out in, say, Nepal, right? And they're going to become a minority because there's so many Chinese people moving there, they would be outraged. They would be literally outraged. But when it's happening to us and other white European countries, you know, and you know, like Canada, America, Australia, New Zealand, all of them, any country that's been established by white people is suffering the same fate. And nobody cares. And it's not only do they not care, they're escalating it and they're coming down on us like a ton of bread for trying to say And we don't hate anybody. We love our people. And we don't see why we should become a hated minority in our own land. Why should we?
Mm-hmm. Especially when it's the only one we have, and if things were to get bad, like you see into like the Afrikaners, the Boers in South Africa, where they're having to flee their lands. You know what I mean? It's like we have nowhere else to go.
No.
You know, it's like this is our one place that, you know, we have to call home, and that's why, you know, it's so important that we preserve it. And I don't think a lot of people realize that many people, in many ways, do think and act along their own sectarian lines, and the ethnic, racial line, whichever term you want to use, are relatively interchangeable in this regard. It is absolutely there. You know, an easy example to point to is like the O.J. Simpson trial in America, but then there was also potentially the case of Ricky Jones recently, where he was potentially acquitted despite being on camera saying what he said, because it was largely a, you know, replaced area, if you will, where the trial was held. But the minute we become a minority, I don't think people realize this, is that we basically lose. You know, you could make the argument, if you want to, democracy is a sham, kind of a sham thing already. But the minute you become a minority, you forfeit any kind of say, because you'll be voted out. You will be outnumbered in the vote at the ballot box, and then you have no say whatsoever. And at that point, that's why I think the minoritization point is so important. You lose your ability to say anything about what's happening to you. You've basically fully capitulated and lost at that point.
Well, we won't become a privileged minority. We won't have minority rights like minorities have when they come here. We'll just be a despised minority. I mean, we're despised now, right? And we're still the majority. And we're absolutely despised by our own people, by our own government, and by ungrateful foreigners that have come here, right? We're absolutely despised. And when we're a minority, we'll be even more despised, because we'll have no chance of turning it back. You know?
Exactly.
That'll be the end of it. People don't realize that once a race is destroyed, that's the end of it. You know, it's like we're heading for extinction. And it's not a joke, because, you know, people say, oh, well, what do you mean you'll be replaced? You know, the birth rate has gone down really badly. People can't even afford to have children, right? But foreigners are coming here. Like, for example, the Afghans, right? The ones in the hotels in the Vale of Glamorgan, there are families there of up to 15 family members, right? And they are walking around Barry like a couple with like 6, 7 children, right? But our people are not having children in those numbers, right? And so obviously, these people are going to come, they're going to carry on breeding like that, and we're going to not be breeding. This is a genocide. It literally is. And it's the UN's definition of a genocide. And if it was anyone else, there'd be action taken, but they're not, because they won't.
Yeah, exactly. It's almost like we've been not only incentivized to allow a genocide by replacement, to also remove ourselves from the gene pool, because, you know, you don't see adverts, for example, for euthanasia being pushed towards these, you know, ethnic minority demographics. You don't see, you know, at least for the most part that I see, them saying how good things like contraception and all stuff like that are, and saying that all of these other places need to have small families, like, you know, to have large families or whatever. It is, again, because of other narratives that we've been told about, like climate change and all of these other things, which have been, you know, largely done to deindustrialization, and then we lose jobs and all of these other things. There's so many initiatives that sort of come together, but it's exactly right. It's almost like at least the way that I see it anyway, it's like a genocide in two parts. You have the people coming in to replace us, and then you have us being incentivized to take ourselves out of the gene pool, if you will. And it's a very, very concerted scheme. And you brought up the figures as well, that we are sort of, you know, dying out, if you will, as a people. Because I covered this on one of the podcasts before. It was from Swansea. It was from Swansea Council, and they said from, I think it was 2023 to 2024, the net natural population, so referring, I'm assuming, to the Welsh population anyway, was down by about 8,100 fewer births than deaths. And then obviously they're making that shortfall up via the immigration, both from outside the UK and from what I see as well, is a lot of people fleeing these cities, fleeing these areas like Tower Hamlets, London, Bristol, Manchester, all of these other areas, to areas like mine, to sort of escape, as you mentioned, the rise in crime, the fact that many people there now don't feel the need to speak the language of the natives because they have their own little social enclaves, which seemingly later on then transcend into no-go zones for the native populace. And yeah, it's a recipe for destruction. But really what concerns me is how much a lot of people from Wales, from England, from Scotland cheer it on, actively cheer it on as if it's a good thing, and then obviously support it, and how much power the government has to push these initiatives through. It is really worrying.
It's an amazing feat how they've encouraged white people to cheer on their own genocide. It really is. It's a credit to them, you know, because people are like, oh, you know, well, we're going to be a minority. Well, so what, you know? And they're the same people who would be up in arms if it was happening to another race in another country. And it's like you said about, we've got nowhere else to go. Like, you've got people here saying, oh, if Nigel Farage gets back in, I'm off back to Jamaica, or I'm off back to India, right? But like, where are we going to go? Where can we go? This is our land. This is our ancestral homeland, and we're being genocided and replaced, and we've got nowhere to go. And we've got the whole machinery of the state determined to silence us. You know, because like those people got stabbed the other day. The guy got killed walking his dog by an Afghan, right? A refugee, right? I've checked Keir Starmer's account on Twitter. He's not mentioned it. Not at all.
No,
not even to say, oh, that was terrible, right? He doesn't even feel, even if he did say something, you know he's lying. He doesn't care, really, but he's just going through the motions. He doesn't even feel the need to go through the motion, right? Yet, somebody a foreigner attacked a synagogue last week or a couple of weeks ago. He flew back from holiday and gave them £10 million for security, right? Now, what did he give the people of Southport when those children were murdered? Nothing. You know? Nothing. Yeah. He didn't say, here's £10 million for security on schools and places like that. He literally couldn't give a shit about the British people. The indigenous.
Even worse, he called them far right. He called them, you know, all of these things, because then they were up in arms and they were angry. And I know you had that one shot that the media ran with. There was that one guy, I think it was in like the riots in Sunderland. I think it might have been with like the swastika tattoo on his back or something like that. But a lot of people there, after seeing the Southport and stuff like that, were just rightfully angry, especially when you find out how much the media lied about it, because they knew exactly what happened. They knew that these 3 young girls got butchered in a dance class and it was completely preventable. The guy should have, you can make the argument, the guy's family should have never even been in the country in the first place. And it's like you said, a pivot to this key point in a moment, because you brought up, you know, Wayne Broadhurst. For those of you who may not be aware, I don't know how you wouldn't be aware of it at this point, 22-year-old Afghan, quote-unquote refugee, I've forgotten his name at time of recording, literally stabbed him no less than 13 times, absolutely butchered him in the middle of the street as he was walking his dog. Just this council binman that was walking his dog in his community. And Keir Starmer and all the Labour seemingly have said nothing about it. But you mentioned, again, the media trying to paint, for example, as Axel Rudakabana as this innocent white, Welsh choir boy was the way that they tried to frame it. And you mentioned that could have very easily been in Wales if his family hadn't have moved to Southport.
Well, that's what I said. This is what we had an undercover sting on us by the BBC a while ago. If people look at my YouTube and my Odyssey, then we've done a review of like the BBC. What they did is they to cut a long story short, they got some guy to come out with us on bridge banner drops and everything, and he worked for the BBC. and he secretly recorded us in pubs and stuff. Didn't get me saying anything illegal, right? Because I say the same things in private that I say publicly, right? I don't abuse people. I don't threaten anybody. You know what I mean? I'm not interested in violence. I just want to preserve my people and my homeland, right? But this guy from the BBC, do you know what? I can't remember what my point was going to be then.
That's right. So we actually did the undercover sting, and we were related back to Axel Rudikamana and Southport and stuff like that.
What I said was, he's not Welsh, right? I said he is not Welsh, he's African. And the
Which
BBC,
is just true.
The BBC said that I should have been arrested for that. I should be arrested for saying he's not Welsh, right? He was born in Wales, right? But he's not Welsh. He's Rwandan, right? And Cliff Richard was born in India. But is he Indian? You know, Joanna Lumley was born in India. She's not Indian either. You know,
I think George Orwell was as well.
Right? But the BBC actually said I should be arrested for that. That was the point I was trying to get to. I just got a little bit, you know, but like, you know, and I also said, obviously that family was moved to Southport because he had pulled knives on people in a Cardiff school, right? They've never said which Cardiff school it was, right? And he attacked somebody with a hockey stick, right? So they moved the family to Southport. Now, if they hadn't moved them, that massacre would have happened in Cardiff. And if it had, maybe some of these idiots in Cardiff would then realise what we're saying, right? Because when I say that could have happened, they go, nah, you know, they're like, again, they're saying I'm an idiot, right? You know, like that Afghan asylum seeker that just stabbed that Wayne Broadhurst, if he'd have been in the hotel in Roos, he would have stabbed somebody in Roos or in Barry, right? I mean, that's just common sense, isn't it? Right? It's the luck of the draw where they end up, right? And even if it's only 1 in 100 that's going to pull a knife out and stab people, right? Or go on to attack somebody because another asylum seeker has just been done for a girl in Cardiff under a bridge, strangled her, and he's another asylum seeker. And yet, when the lefties went to Caerphilly the other week, their advert for the Caerphilly demo was "Stop blaming asylum seekers for attacks," right? Well, you know, it's like the George Orwell quote, you know, the party wants you to ignore the evidence of your eyes and ears, right? Because all around you, you can see that some of these people are attacking our people, and yet the left are saying, what are you talking about? You know, they're just gaslighting us. And I saw this thing, it was all these famous women, they want people to stop linking immigration with attacks. And one of them is Charlotte Church, that weirdo, right? And, you know, literally put that next to all the cut-ins of all the attacks. And these are people, they're all famous people. There's something wrong with them. You know, it's like they've been hypnotized and they just can't see the wood for the trees. Like they're just absolutely mentally ill to tell us, right, that it's not happening when literally nearly every day now there's somebody that should not be in this country being done for a stabbing or a right. And then the lefties, what they did, Matt Goodwin was on Question Time, right? Now, we all know, right, they hand-pick the audience, right? Now, this audience were from Bradford, and the majority of them were white, right? Most of them are not from Bradford, and most of them will be seasoned political left-wing activists, right? And they're all there to pile into it, right? And they're just going, blah, 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 blah. Why don't you talk about white people? Why don't you talk about white people doing this, white people doing that? Like, you know, all and killers ought to be locked up, right? But our point is, that these people should not be here. So they should not be able to rape and kill because they shouldn't be in this country. And they say, why doesn't Nigel Farage talk about this murder or that murder? Because if British people murder, right, we couldn't prevent that from happening, could we? Right? But we can prevent it from happening when the people shouldn't be here in the first place. And the majority of the people doing this have entered the country illegally in the first place. They've not even come here legally. They've broken the law by breaking into the country, and then they're going on to kill or people. And the lefties' argument is, well, white people do it as well. You know? So white people do it as well, so let's import thousands more then. You know?
Exactly. It's a very weird argument when you break it down to what it is. So it's like, surely then the thing would be like, okay, well, if we have so many bad people here already, which is what you hear in the media all the time, how about let's not make it worse and let's deal with the problems that we already have. Let's lock up the murderers, let's lock up all of these people, or maybe even worse, maybe we can bring back even harsher penalty, right? Let's deal with that. Let's not then use that as an impetus to import more, which, again, a thing that strikes really at the heart of the lefty narrative, in my opinion, is that what happened in Scotland recently, in Elgin. I'm not sure if you've seen that, the Afghan that recently I believe he went into court or was sentenced for I think it was a 14-year-old, but I might be wrong on that. And people done a little bit of demographic analysis on it, myself included. They found out that in that area, there's only about 0.3% of the ethnic group that he would be in. So like Pakistani, different types of Asian, all of this stuff. And there's about 25,000 or so people that live there. And when you do the math, it breaks it down, meaning there's like less than 100 people of this kind of descent that lives there. So there's a good potential that literally, I don't like saying this, but the only Afghan that was in that area then went on to rape someone. And it's like, maybe there's something else at play as well. Maybe, as we've seen, a lot of the have been racially motivated. There's religious motivations as well. Some of the excerpts from the gangs and stuff like that have been heartbreaking to read. Very hard to read, a lot of them.
The thing is, I did a stream the other night with Matt Collett, right? I don't know whether you watched it, right? But he was saying,
I haven't had a chance to watch it yet. I will watch it.
Getting from some of these countries, we're not getting the good people, right? They are literally, some of these countries are sending their criminals to us to get rid of them. They don't want them. You know, they could be offenders that's been jailed over there and they're sending them here. You know, we're not getting good people. He was saying, you know, the tidy people are staying there. They're sending offenders over here. And I read in one place, I can't remember what it was, somewhere like Iran, that they were clearing their prisons and they were pushing ex-prisoners this way, off you pop, go to Europe, you know, because they don't want them there. And that can explain a lot, you know?
Think about it, it just makes sense. You know, they think, oh, well, this other area of the world that we have ideological differences with anyway, we have political differences with in many ways that, you know, we put ourselves in opposition to these governments, like Iran, for example. Oh, they've got this ridiculous open borders, suicidal policy. Yeah, let's send our prisoners over there. It means we don't have to take care of them. It means we don't have to deal with them. You know what I mean? And you don't even...
Well, yeah.
Exactly. And people will call you all manner of things for saying that. But I'm like, can't you just see from that government's perspective, the practical utility? It's practical for them. They don't have to they don't have to deal with all of these heinous criminals. They can just leave them to us, and either we put them up at our taxpayer expense, or we just leave them go through the streets and they do whatever the hell they want, and they're not policed whatsoever. And you see that then when police officers then go to these communities and so on and say, how do you want to be policed? And then you have all other things with like Sharia courts and Sharia doctrine and all of this stuff that seems to be making its way through like the Islamic cultural centers and so on. And you see more and more of them even popping up in areas very, very close to mine. And it makes me think that all of these problems which we're seeing now in many other areas are going to get so much worse. You mentioned in a lot of areas like we have, the gun crime and all of this stuff is completely unheard of, pretty much. But then there was somebody in my hometown that had a gun pulled on them the other day by a gang of youths. So I'm like, well, hang on, what the hell is going on? This is a quiet, rural Welsh Valleys town, and this would have been completely unheard of my entire life. And now all of a sudden you have, youth pulling guns on people. This is, and in a town that everybody knows everybody on a first name basis, pretty much.
Yeah.
It's awful. It's absolutely awful.
County line drugs and all that coming in as well. If you look at the Wales Online, you'll see a lot of them in Swansea. There's a lot of county lines going down to Swansea. They're always from London, always black, right? And while they're down there, they can't just go there and quietly sell drugs. They have to start shooting people and stabbing people,
And it seems like you get this weird imported gang warfare. It's like I covered a good few episodes ago. It was a tragic case of a 9-year-old girl getting caught in the crossfire of what appeared to be two gangs of rival Turkish people that were operating in London, like two rival Turkish gangs that were operating in London. I'm like, why do we have rival groups of Turkish gangs operating in London? Why do we have that? I think they were called
in Cardiff of Albanians killing each other in the drug trade.
So really?
Yeah, there's been at least 2 murders in Cardiff of Albanians who've been killed by other Albanians over drugs. And in the one case, I think it was in Splot, they had a weed house where they grow the weed. And the one Albanian, he came down from London to rob it. And they had some hidden cameras set up. They realized it was being robbed. They went round and got it. And they were done for that. And then there was another one, I think they beat him to death in an alleyway or something. But that's 2 murders. You wouldn't even know about them. If it's a little story in the Wales Online, These things don't get big coverage,
Again, in Cardiff, not in whatever city in Albania itself, where you might have these criminal gangs operating versus each other, in Cardiff. And that's what gets me as well, is that a lot of people, I try talking about them in the way that things are going to pan out unless we do something. At the very least, unless we're willing to talk about it openly and honestly and understand the trajectory where this is going. I talk to people about, the atrocities that have occurred predominantly in England, but there's a lot of evidence showing that these gangs and stuff like that have been operating in Cardiff, in Swansea, in other places as well. 3 of the counties that were named in Rupert Lowe's list of 85 counties that were sort of covering up these sort of child-related crimes as part of his inquiry were based in Wales, one of them very close to me, which I was very shocked by. And I'm trying to tell people, look, this is where it's going. Can we talk about this? Can we do something about it? A lot of people just want to bury their heads in the sand. They don't want to have to confront these things, all of this stuff. I've realized I've gone out of focus a little bit. That's doing my head in. And they're like, oh, well, look what's happened up there. I'm like, look what's happened in Luton. Look what's happened in all of these other areas. Let's not have that. And they're like, well, that's up there. I don't care about what's going on up there. I'd be like, you don't care about the industrial, child rape that's going on up there for racial reasons? And that you have young relatives in your life that could very easily be them? And that drives me insane. That drives me insane. I'd be like, look, you have so many warning signs.
I've seen it happening in Cardiff. When I used to work in Roath, City Road area, I used to sit in my van and because I used to work all around there, and I used to watch them outside the shops. They hang around outside the shops all the time, and they're talking to 14-year-old girls outside the shops and petting their dogs and all the rest of it. And, I've had people messaging me saying this takeaway is giving free chips to the kids and all that. And in Swansea, when there was an organisation called the DFLA, and there was a lot of football lads that going to protests and stuff, and they were keeping surveillance on some of the shops in Swansea, right? And they gave a load of evidence to the police, and eventually the police basically told them to stop doing it, to stop spying.
Sounds about right.
Yeah, because they were saying, oh, this is the number plates, this is what these girls are going in and out of shops and all that sort of thing. Then they ended up being warned, stop what you're doing, because it's racial hatred. You know what I mean? So they're not interested. They're not interested because they know it'll open a massive can of worms.
And you want to stir up a recipe for more quote-unquote racial hatred, tell the people that are trying to protect children from these kinds of things when they know what's going on and they've seen patterns of it in other areas of the country, tell them to stop doing that, to stop protecting the children, because they know that the government and the police won't do it because they might be stirring up racial hatred or whatever. That's a perfect recipe for stirring up actual racial hatred, the way that I see it. And it's just, again, people are having to feel, or people are now seeing that they kind of have to take this into their own hands. They have to kind of do like their own surveillance or get together in their own groups and all of these things. I keep going out of focus. This is doing my absolute head in. Because they know that the police won't do anything. There's a really good case where the police didn't do anything. It was the case of Ian Watkins, prolific paedophile, prolific Welsh paedophile, ex-lead singer of Lost Prophets, recently got stabbed to death in prison. And also Peter and Avril Griffiths as well. We've seen that the police are not only often just not willing to do anything, in many ways they're outright facilitating it, or worst case scenarios we've seen recently, potentially even involved in it, which is just a really disgusting thought.
What you were on about there, that couple from Barry, like, I knew them, right? I used to go, like, I don't drink now. I haven't drunk for about 5 years, right? But years ago, when they were actively doing that, we used to go to a pub called Bindle's in Barry, right? And it's been knocked down now, right? But they were over there all the time. And one night, me and my mates, they invited us to a party on a boat. But we didn't go to it because they were weirdos. Yeah, they were weirdos anyway. So they were like, oh, we're having a party on this boat on the docks. And we were like, nah, you're all right, you know what I mean? And then years later, they found out that they were nonsense kids down there. You know?
And allegedly, according to some of the news articles, go on. Oh, go on. Sorry, no, I interrupted you. I do apologize.
No, it's all right. I was just saying, like, they were actively doing that in front of everybody, and nobody really knew about it. But I mean, people must have known, because I can remember people going to the parties. Do you know what I mean? It's not like they were little parties with only a few people there. They were in the pub saying, "Come on, you know what I mean? We're having a party," and it was just like they were doing it in plain sight, like.
Yeah, and you mentioned as well that the boat party, which I read about, I think it was in a Wales Online article. I cited it a couple of times, or it might have been a BBC article. It was a site where some of these horrific occurred. But the biggest thing is that Peter Griffiths himself, was a special constable with the police, as far as I know. And not only that, they're alleged to have been police. I've gone completely out of focus now. My webcam really doesn't want to focus for some reason. Yeah, they were on the. There we go. Am I back in focus? There we are. They were actually on the boat themselves. A lot of them were, and some of them were alleged to have been threatening the victims, saying that, look, you're not going to get anywhere. You might as well not say anything. Classic things that were told to the gang victims as well. And there's just such a rot at the heart of so many institutions. But as you say, all of this stuff, the government just calls you far right. They call you Nazi, racist, Islamophobe, whatever it is. As a measure to silence you. And the only thing is, I don't think people realize, is that when people say things like that now, it can carry, an unwritten, unlawful death sentence. Because the minute people hear that, a lot of them, they want you dead,
Yeah. I know. Well, this is the thing. And like this racial hatred thing, like, is like, I can remember when they wrote in the Public Order Act of 1986, right, which is what a lot of people get arrested for, right, for so-called inciting racial hatred. It says in that law that the truth is not a defense, right? Because when they were writing these laws up, I'll explain this now to you, right? When they were writing this law up, they wanted a law that was group libel, right? So that it would be an offence to libel a group, to say, oh, this group of people commit a lot of knife crime, or this group of people commit, they wanted it to be group libel, right? But the response, how you win a case of libel, is to prove that what you're saying is true, right? So they wrote into this law, the truth is not a defence, right? And at the time, I was in the BNP, and we were saying, this is the most, tyrannical thing that has ever happened, right? And now, fast forward to a few years ago, Sam Melia, do you know about Sam Melia's case?
Yeah,
He
I
was
know the
making,
sort of vagaries of it.
he was designing stickers, right? He wasn't making stickers, he was just designing them, right? And they were like along the lines of White Lives Matter, right? That
Yeah.
sort of thing. And he was arrested and he was charged with all these offenses of inciting racial hatred, right? Now, he basically argued that they're not illegal, these designs and these stickers. If it's legal to say Black Lives Matter, then it's equally legal to say that White Lives Matter, right? So he goes to court and the judge has directed the jury that even though these stickers are legal, if you feel that when he was producing these stickers, he was motivated by racial hatred, he is guilty of an offense. And he was found guilty and he was jailed for 2 years. And then he come out of prison, right? And when you come out of prison, you're on license for say you do like, you get 2 years, you do half of it, you come out, then you're on license for the other year, right? That means they can
Mhm.
totally control you. They made him live in a hostel, even though he's got a wife and children, right? He had to
Mhm.
live in this hostel. They've just basically controlled him for another year as well. Not allowed to go to meetings, not allowed to meet with another member of PA. They've just totally done that to him. But the thing is the judge directed that jury that those stickers were legal, but if they felt that his motivation was hatred, he's guilty of an offense. That is the very definition of a thought crime.
Yeah,
Right?
and it's complete kangaroo courts. You know what I mean? It's just saying like, oh yeah, the truth is that it's not illegal, but we're going to convict him anyway.
Yeah. And it's like, so an African goes to Southport, stabs a load of children, but if you say the wrong thing about it, you could be done for racial hatred, right? Inciting racial hatred. You know, what are you supposed to do? You know, I've been arrested. I've had my house searched for this alleged inciting racial hatred a few times, and I've not been charged, right? I don't insult people. I don't threaten people. But like the one time I was arrested because I said, there was after like 9/11 that there was armed police at Cardiff Central train station, right? And I used to get
Mhm.
trained to work and they were there with little machine guns and everything. And then I see like Muslim youths walking past with rucksacks and they didn't search them or anything, right? So I said on a video, what's the point of having armed police there if they let a Muslim youth walk straight past them with a rucksack? What's the point then? What is the point of that? Right? And that was one of the things I said. And another one was some of the bombers that did the 7/7 attack. I think one of them worked in an airport. So I said, if you can't tell which ones are extremists or not, then they shouldn't be allowed to work in airports. So those things got me arrested, got me held in custody for 3 days, right? My children's laptops were taken. My laptop was taken. My laptop and phone were kept for 18 months, right? And then I was told that there was no further action. And that was all I said. And like when I went into the interview, the solicitor said to me, if you say that you dislike Muslims, you're going to be charged. So you have to say you only dislike the extremist ones who would like to kill you, right? And I said, okay, fair enough, I'll say that, right? But I said, really, if I did dislike all Muslims, why should I be jailed for that? Right? I'm not
Mhm.
saying I do dislike them all, right? But if I was to say that in an interview, I would have been in jail, right? This is an absolute tyranny, you know? And I see like, and I was listening to Andrew Lawrence, the comedian, the other day, and he said,
Mhm.
I'm thinking of moving to another country that's a little bit less oppressive than this one, somewhere like North Korea, he said, you know?
Yeah,
And that's a joke, but it's not a joke because
I
this
was going
is
to say,
what we're
yeah.
living in an absolute tyranny where our people are under attack, you know, we're going to be a hated minority in our own land unless something changes radically. And this is why I've been, you know, promoting reform, even though I don't like Nigel Farage. I think he's a charlatan, and so is Richard Tice. And
Yeah.
I don't think they'll give us what we want, but we would be no worse off if they won and they created, you know, a government. We would be no worse off, right? If they turned out to be another show of a government, we're no worse off, are we? Because we know if we stay with what we've got, you know, it's just things are just gonna continue. And Plaid Cymru, right? My God, they've worked hand in glove with the Welsh Labour government in Wales, and now they are talking as if they are the breath of fresh air, and that Labour have been so terrible for so many years, and they're going to change everything, and they've been a part of it.
Yeah, they've been pulling the strings in the background.
They're
They've been pulling
being
the strings in the
massively,
background, like.
yeah, exactly. Honest to God, like what can you do? Like, you know, this is why I'm promoting reform, and like sometimes promoting reform is embarrassing. You know, I'm cringing at some of them, right? That Sarah Pockin, right, whatever her name is, she says exactly what everyone is thinking. You can't walk into a store like Tesco or Asda without seeing just that many pictures of foreigners that you think you would in another country, right? And I don't watch TV. I don't own a TV, right? But even when you're watching videos, if adverts come on, all the adverts are foreigners, right? Or mixed race couples, right? So she could have worded what she said a bit better, but she's only saying what we're all thinking, right? That this is absolutely ridiculous, right? And it doesn't make people think, oh, multiculturalism is amazing. It's like people, like my parents are not political at all, and they've said to me, have you seen how many black people are on the adverts? And I'm like, yeah, tell me about it. You know? And they're not politically motivated. And you know, they're just normies. And even they've noticed, you know what I mean? But like, and then I thought, oh, fair play to her. She could have worded it a bit better, but you know, at least she said it because no one else is saying it. And then she goes and apologizes. Why would you do that? You know, like you've said it anyway. Apologizing doesn't appease the left. It doesn't. It makes them attack even harder. You know, they're going for your jugular then because they can see weakness. You know?
Yeah, it's like a shark in the water, you know, like they smell the blood at that point. You know, it's like a wounded animal.
You're a bleeding fish, right? And the thing is, like, it's just like, you know, she might as well have doubled down and just said, no, I said it. Maybe I could have said it a bit better, but it's true, right? And the British people don't like it. You know, it doesn't make them more amenable to multiculturalism. It's having the exact opposite effect. It's pissing people off, right? And, you know, but to go and apologize the next day, my God, like, you know, there's no hope, you know?
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing as well is that, as you mentioned, you're not going to get anywhere at this point by apologizing. You're just basically saying, here's my neck, come have a go. That's basically what you're saying. So, you know, maybe just in the next interview or whatever she has, maybe phrase it differently, but apologizing isn't going to get you anywhere with a lot of these hard left-wing types.
It's like these twats who go, oh, I'm not racist. Oh, look, you know, we've got this black guy with us. I'm not racist. I'm not racist. You're still a Nazi as far as they're concerned, right? It doesn't matter how many black people you take on a march with you. You're a Nazi, right? And the people that cuck and attack others, you know, there's people, and I won't mention any names, in Wales, like, we're not racist. They're racist. They're the real racists, you know? And they're pointing a finger at me and other people and saying, we're not racist. He's racist. And they still get called Nazis anyway, right? So all the virtue signaling and all the cucking and all the we're not racist, and you still get called it anyway, because there is no dealing with the left. They're absolutely deranged and mentally ill, right? You can't have a debate with them. They won't debate you because you start debating them and you start to win, and they just go, "You're a Nazi," and that's it. That's the end of the discussion,
No.
or yeah, they'll just go, say it loud, say it clear,
Yeah, and I
like,
think the large point is then if you can't beat them in a debate, if they call you a Nazi because you're winning in a debate, then what does that say? Can you not?
Everyone,
Can you
never
not win?
The thing is, is this, right? I always say, if my argument is so right, then speak to me and prove that I'm full of shit. Prove it. If I'm talking crap, have a debate with me, and then you can prove to the whole world that I'm an idiot and I'm talking shit, right? But they won't, because their arguments are so paper thin, you can just destroy them in seconds, And they've never ever debated with anybody. They won't, and they say, "Oh, I'm not debating you. I'm not giving you airtime," But it's the real reason is because they know you will destroy them.
And I think that's why, as we've seen in many instances, they don't even resort to words a lot of the time. They resort to violence and they resort to all of these other methods,
We used to have a chat room years ago. There was a thing called Pal Talk, and you could have a chat room on there, right? This was in the EDL days, and you'd have hundreds of people in there, and you had to put your hand up if you wanted to speak, And then one of the guys who was running it was saying, "Let's bring some lefties in and debate with them," and because obviously they'll see our point of view and all this. So he gets this lefty in the one day, and he's chatting away. We're explaining stuff to him, blah, 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 blah. And he's listening and saying, "Oh, right, oh, right, all right." And then at the end, he said, "Oh, well, thanks for letting me into your chat room, you Nazis." And that was it, And that was, so I just said, we've wasted an hour talking to him, thinking you're winning him over, and you haven't. He still thinks we're a load of Nazis anyway. So it's pointless talking to them, It's just like, honestly, but he wasn't debating. He was just letting us talk. We were saying, this is what it's about. We're being demographically replaced, blah, 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 blah. And he was just, oh, yeah, oh, yeah, oh, yeah. Then he just, the end, just called the Nazis anyway. They're absolutely deranged is what they are.
Oh, absolutely. And yeah, it's exactly as you said. It's like if their ideas are so good, or if there's truth to what they're saying or whatever it is, then that will be evident based on the strength of their arguments and what they bring forward, and it will stand on its own merits. But a lot of the time they know that that's not the case. A lot of times you literally see it. All they have are slogans half the time, half of their names are slogans, stand up to racism and all of these other things. But like Nazi scum off our streets, and all stuff like that. Just all they have are slogans, and they just scream them in your face. Whereas then you actually try to have anything resembling a dialogue sooner or later. Because a lot of people, you see them at these protests, they don't actually understand why they're there. They just want to go there because they think they're appearing virtuous. They think they're doing the right thing, which I do feel for a lot of these people. A lot of people that get caught up in these causes and they don't actually think about a lot of the things. They get sucked in by propaganda, all of this stuff. They don't want to hurt people's feelings. They're actually really nice people, some of these people that just get sucked into these things. And they go and support them, and they don't understand why. But then with a lot of these, other types, the ones that are running the organizations and so on, no, it's a case of they know exactly what they're doing, and they just know that their ideas can't stand up to scrutiny. They won't win the quote unquote battle of ideas. So then that's why they resort to, in many instances, physical violence. In many, as we've seen very recently, only a month ago, political assassination. And it makes you think it's a very, very scary time. You mentioned Nigel Farage, and there's something that I sort of came around. I was like Reform's biggest fanboy going into like the 2024 election. And then obviously Nigel Farage, he softened on immigration, he softened on like Islam and stuff like that. He seemingly appointed Zaya Youssef because of a massive political donation and all of these other things, very suspect stuff, alienated a lot of his base. But I do think back to one instance, I think it was when he was in Clacton and that young lady threw a milkshake at him. It made the news headlines and all stuff like that. And I'm thinking then, well, that could have easily been concrete, or that could have easily been acid or something like that. And I'm like, oh, this is serious. There's a lot of people out there that just want to do people harm because they have different opinions and stuff like that, and because of how much they've been drummed up by propaganda.
Yeah. Oh, I've seen it millions of times over the years. Like, you know, there was a thing called March for England. Every St. George's Day, there was a march in Brighton, and it was being attacked all the time, you know, massively attacked. And Brighton is Lefty central, right? And we were going down there, and the violence was unbelievable every time. And there would be like 120 people marching, and it started out as family, but in the end, it was just fellas mostly. And they was attacked and there'd be like 1,200 lefties, and they were flying lefties in from Belgium, France, Germany, everywhere. And it became the annual puncher, you know? And it's just like, and when you see people trying to interview the lefties, and it was even like that in Roos the other week. That Cullen from Central Club, he's there talking to people, and you know, the people who are against that hotel, they're like, they want to say things, but they're scared. They don't want to be arrested. They don't want to lose their jobs. You can see they're not saying what they want to say. They're too scared, right? I offered him an interview and he just ignored me, right? Even though I talk to him sometimes, he just ignored that because he's had so much hassle for interviewing Tommy Robinson that if he interviewed me, you know, it would be 10 times worse probably, right? Because according to these lefties, I'm a white supremacist, right? Even though I'm not, right? But he was talking to the people on the protest, and he's tried 2 or 3 times he's been there, and he's tried to interview lefties, and they will not speak to him. They're abusing him, they're threatening him, right? And he's not right wing. He wants to get both sides of the story, right? And they just like they've got no argument. You know, they can't say to him, right, well, this is what it is, right? The refugees, blah, 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 right? They've got no coherent arguments. So all they've actually got is to shout Nazi at him, you know? And this is the same everywhere I've been to. I've been to hundreds and hundreds of protests, and they act the same way, no matter where it is, you know? They're the same. They will not debate. They've got no coherent argument, and all they've got is violence and threats. And yet they want you arrested. You know, they'll attack you and get you arrested. This is the thing, like.
The police are all too keen to go along with them, and as you said, all they have are violence, threats, and lies. In my opinion, lots and lots of lies.
Tonight with the when I went to prison, I went to Wandsworth. I got 6 months.
Yeah, you briefly mentioned it.
Yeah. Well, we went to London to a protest, and we were attacked by Antifa lefties in the subway. And this girl went for me with a stick, right? It was like 2 broom handles taped together with a anarchist flag on it. She came running up the steps towards me with this stick waving at me. So I pushed her down the steps, and she smashed her face in on the floor. And I turned around, and there was 2 police there, grabbed me, arrested me. But I wasn't bothered. I just said, okay, no problem. Get the CCTV, right? She attacked me with a stick. She admitted attacking me, right? I went to court and I got jailed for 6 months. You know, this is why it's not worth getting into hassle with these lefties. Like, you know, it's just not worth it, because she was saying on Facebook, she's an anarchist. She hates the police, but she'll use the police to get me jailed. You know, and in court, she said, yes, I attacked him. Why did you attack him? Because he's a fascist and he doesn't deserve to breathe the same air as me, is what she said, right? And I was convicted because I was saying it was self-defense. I took one step forward to push her. And because I took that one step forward, they said it wasn't self-defense. But like now, I don't see the point. There's too many people who really want to get into a confrontation with the lefties. It's not worth it, It really isn't. Because they're quite happy for you to hit them as long as they get you
Yeah.
locked up, right? And that's
It's
why
almost like that's what they want.
Yeah, that's why when we do the bridge drops, like you came to our bridge drop, we don't announce where we're going, right? Because if you announce where you're going and they've got a little bit of notice, they'll turn up, 30, 40 of them, shout, and you'll have 2 hours of them loudspeakers going, welcome, right? And it's just a pain in the ass. Like, it gives me a headache, makes me feel nauseous, right? So we don't tell them where we're going. We just turn up, do what we need to do. Like the Roos Airport, I've not been to any of the protests there, but we've done bridge banner drops near there. There's no bridges really, but we just stand on the roundabout with the banners and everything. We've done that like 3 times. We do it on a night when they don't know we're going there. So there's no lefties, there's no trouble, there's no need for any police to be there either, And this is why they hate us so much, because they can't interfere with us, because that's the way we do it.
And that's the biggest thing. It's like you had... go on.
Other people announce their demos because they want the lefties to go there. They want the confrontation because it's, like and subscribe. They like the hassle because it's, it's good viewing, But I'm not interested in that. All I want to do is make my point. I want the public to see our banners. We get new banners made all the time. And, like on that bridge the other night, thousands of people saw us on there, right? We had a little bit of abuse, but the majority of people supported us, didn't they? Right? And the lefties can't interfere with it. That's why they hate it so much,
Yeah, and it's like you tend to see these, demonstrations and stuff like that then. And it was exactly what I saw when I went to that, when I went to the bridge drop. It was very clean, very unconfrontational. You weren't looking to pick fights with people, anybody walking past or anything like that. A lot of people just waving flags and being really happy and exercising a little bit of pride in their heritage and who they were, and just being politically active, which I thought in a free society, that's what we were all not only now, not only free to be, but also in many ways now obligated to be, because everyone has the right to vote. So therefore everybody in many ways has an obligation to be somewhat politically active. But you only tend to see then the agitation, exactly as you mentioned, common denominator, when these lefties show up. And a lot of them, as you mentioned, they bust in from other areas of the UK deliberately. They are often paid agitators. A lot of them I know at least have some relation, whether they're directly funded or whatever, by a lot of the unions in Britain. It's very much so you see the distinction between one side of things that is very grassroots, just regular people exercising their freedom to protest and to be politically active, and the other side, which is a very well-oiled machine, but is full of paid people who don't understand why they're there. They have no respect for the cause. They have no respect for the communities. That's why you see when they're opposing the protest outside the Bell Hotel in Epping after Hadush Gabatu did the heinous crime that he did, all of the nationalists, they pick up their placards, they leave no litter, they actually have care for their communities. The stand-up to racism lefty types, they leave their placards everywhere. They have no respect for the communities, all of this stuff. You can see where the true grassroots lies. You see where the true sentiment of a lot of just regular people lies. And you can see how, like, for lack of a better term, astroturfed or inauthentic the other side is. And then a lot of times then that's why I think you see them, they are the ones causing the trouble. They agitate, much like a cry bully. They agitate, and then they hide behind the very police they claim to hate, and they use them, and it's an extremely well executed plan, if you will. All of these different facets, to hate the police or whatever, but then to use them in this way. You know, that's one example of some of the things that they do. And the propaganda that they have is very effective a lot of the time.
Somebody said to me the other day in work, said these lefties, right? They don't do their own demonstrations, right? They just hold demonstrations with the express purpose of stopping someone else from having a demonstration. That is what they are about. They're not about demonstrating. They are about stopping you from demonstrating. Yeah, you know, that's a true story. It is. Like, I had to say to the guy, yeah, well, they protest for Palestine, right? But like, the majority of what they do is someone's having a demo here, someone's having a demo there, let's stop them. You know? Like, that is just so, it's just so communist, it's unbelievable. And it's ridiculous, you know? And they think that they're stopping you anyway. Like, standing across the road shouting through a loudspeaker for 2 hours is not stopping you, is it? Right? They just want to make it an unbearable experience. Because somebody said to me that they went to one of the Roos protests and this foreign girl was screaming through a loudspeaker for 2 hours and she's wearing ear defenders, right? So she's wearing them because she knows that that is a noise that's going to batter your eardrums. You know what I mean? So she's just there to piss people off. You know, like they are giving up their time. Maybe they're being paid, right? But like they're giving up their time every week to just go and try and prevent other people from exercising their democratic rights. You know, they want to stop you protesting. That's unbelievable.
Yeah, and not to mention just stop you from protesting, but they'll often use this as a propaganda tactic, as we talked about as well, where I think I mentioned I turned up late, admittedly, but there was nothing over social media about one of these opposition to Nation of Sanctuary protests in Caerphilly, but then there were plenty of screenshots and videos of lefties protesting in the area for Palestine or whatever else. And it seemed as though they'd concocted this fake protest that you'd mentioned you'd never heard anything about. You didn't know who was organizing it. You didn't know who was taking part in it. Next thing you know, it doesn't materialize, but then they get to have this big propaganda victory moment. We scared off the far right or whatever. And again, the propaganda machine's very effective.
They do it all the time. What they did the other week was they said the fascists have said they're marching to the Senedd on Saturday. We have to stop them. So I thought, who the hell's marching to the Senedd? So I'm looking online. I'm messaging people because I know a lot of people, right? No one knows anything about it. No one's marching in Cardiff for any reason that they could class as being right-wing in any way. There was no march anywhere, right? So they concocted that themselves, and then they turned up at the Senedd, 30, 40, the same people, half of them are the Palestine mob, right? And then they say, ha, they've bottled it. The fascists have bottled it. We've scared them off. And there was another time where they did the same thing. This is a few years ago now. There was a Facebook page, or maybe it was a website, right? And it was like some made up name, like the Cardiff Resistance or something like this, right? A new fascist group is going to march in Cardiff. They're meeting at Central Station at 12 o'clock on Saturday. Let's stop them, right? So they went there, a load of lefties shouting and screaming, and no so-called fascists turned up, right? And then the website that was supposedly this fascist group was changed, and it was like, we now own your bases, all your bases belong to us, you know? And they were like, ha, an anti-fascist has hacked their page, right? So, but if they could hack websites, they would hack all of our websites and all of our pages, wouldn't they? Right? So clearly, they set up the page for a fake demo so they could go to Cardiff and then say, we chased the fascists away. And then they changed the website, which was their website in the first place, so they could then pretend they'd hacked. And that's how clever they are. You know, we hacked their website. You know, if they could hack it, they would hack everything, wouldn't they?
Ah,
You know,
absolutely.
they would spend 24 hours a day hacking our stuff. You know,
Yeah, I was going to
well,
say, you think they'd let you guys operate?
exactly. You know, they are just so full of shit. It's unbelievable. And they do this all the time. You know, and they say,
Yeah, it is.
oh, they've gone at the airport like Friday night, right? Last night. And they said, oh, there's only about 9 fascists there now. We're driving them away. What's happening is it's logistically murder to get to that airport hotel, right? Have you ever been there? Right?
I
You
don't
can't
think I
park
have, no.
there, right? When you can, there's a lay-by outside, right? But when there's a demo called, the police have blocked it off. You can't park there, right? If you park in Roos Village, I used to live in Roos Village. If you park in Roos Village, you have to walk. It's about 25-minute walk, right? And it's usually raining now, so people ain't gonna do that. If you park in the airport, it's £20 for 2 hours, right? This is where, yeah. So logistically, it's hard to get people there, right? Even if you're from Bruce, right? You know, I'm talking 25 minutes to the beginning of Bruce. You know what I mean? So if you live further back into Bruce, you could be walking for 45 minutes to get to that hotel in the rain. You know what I mean? It's people ain't going to do it. And the weather's turned. It's freezing cold. It's pissing down. Obviously, they're not going to get the numbers. They've been having 30, 40 people there sometimes, other times 15. The numbers are now dropping off because of the weather, right? And the logistics of getting there. And the lefties think it's because they're winning. You know, nobody wants them there. No one wants them there. They chucked out a load of homeless people. I think it was 40 or 50 homeless people, but in that hotel they were turfed out, right? And some of the people who were protesting were homeless and were in that hotel, and they'd been chucked out for foreigners, right? And I made a video with the defense secretary, and he was saying that the majority of the people are not people who've helped the British Army, right? And I still see the lefties saying, they've helped us, what's the matter with you? I saw a guy that was in school with me that was a good friend of mine when I was young, and he was saying the same thing. They've helped us, they're heroes, you know? Like,
No, they're not.
his name's John Healey, I think, the defense secretary. He's admitted they are people who put their name on a list to with the on the hope that they could come here, and then that mysteriously got leaked, right? How convenient was that? But he's admitted that they didn't work with us, and one of the main guys doing the protest, he's a veteran, right? And I spoke to another guy that was in Afghan, and he says the number of people who helped the British Army was very, very small, right? Not 25,000 people. You know what I mean? It's just utter gaslighting is what it is. And we know from people who work for the council that they've already housed a load of them. And they've only been in there 8, 9, 10 weeks, right? And they're being housed already, you know? So that's what I've said to Barry people. If you want them gone, you have to protest because the Home Office will not pay the cost of policing demonstration, right? So if that cost of all those police there every week on Fridays and some Saturdays, that bill is going to the local council. And if they sustain the bills, the council won't be able to keep it up. Eventually, they'll have to consider moving them somewhere else, you know? And like people are saying, they're moving them out of the hotels into HMOs now, and it's worse. It's worse because they're in the community now, right? And a lot of them are like gangs of men in the houses, right? There's a lot of families in that hotel, right? But some people have said, oh, because they're families, it's not so bad. It is because they are going to take all the resources that are scarce anyway, right? There's thousands of people homeless, and they're coming here with big hordes of children, so they're taking priority. And I was told by some boys who work for the local authority that 2 3-bedroom houses have been knocked into one. right? And they don't know who that's for, but, you know, have a wild guess who it's going to be for. So who
Mm-hmm.
needs a 6-bedroom house, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And this is the thing. It's like, and I said to the Barry people when this was happening, right, that I'm not doing a demonstration there. They'll have to do their own, because did I tell you what happened with Llantwit? The Llantwit
Uh,
demo.
I briefly remember, yeah, but you have to
Yeah.
refresh my memory if that's all right.
We called a demonstration, right? And there was 30 of us, and there was a group on Facebook with maybe 200 people in it, local people who didn't want it there. They didn't want the camp there, right? And they wanted a medical center. They got a refugee camp, right? But so we went to do a demonstration, and the local people, 400 lefties turned up, right? And that's the most lefties I've ever seen in Wales, right? It's because they say I'm a white supremacist and all this, right? So anyway, 400 of them turned up. The locals bottled it. Only 2 or 3 locals stood with us. So I said to these people in Roos, you have to do it yourselves, because if I do it, one, people will sit back and let me do it, right? When I do these demos, I get nothing but trouble from the police, right? And they start following me, hassling me, you know, maybe I get raided, you know what I mean? And so I've said, you'll have to do it yourself. And they've done a good job of it, like, you know, but like they would sit back and let me do it anyways, and I'm not doing it.
Mm.
And you know, I've done enough demos in my time. If there's ever a demo in South Wales, it'll be usually me. I held a march in Cardiff, which was the biggest far right, so-called far right march in
Mm.
Cardiff. If you watch the hit piece that was done on me in 2010, that was it. But we had about 1,400 people trying to attack us that day, you know? And like, I had loads of trouble from the police over that as well. But like, I'm not doing anything illegal, you know? But like, when you've got the Senedd and Mark Drakeford and all those other commies in there saying, we're going to clamp down on the far right, we're going to clamp down on the far right. Like, I've been told that they have these meetings and my name is discussed in those meetings, you know? So it stands to reason that the police are going to be on my case, you know,
Mm-hmm.
even though I am just exercising my democratic right to protest. You know, I don't
Mm-hmm.
get involved in violence. I don't threaten anybody. I don't racially abuse anybody, but I'm still having a load of trouble because we cost them money. But it's our right to protest. And
Mm-hmm.
if you watch that hit piece they did on me when they confronted me in my work van, and it was basically, he was saying, "Oh, do you want to kill people? You want to do this? You want to do that?" And I said, "Have I said any of that? I haven't, right?" And he said, "What are you doing then?" And I said, "I'm legally protesting." And he just went, "Oh, okay, fair enough," and walked off. But they'd recorded 1 or 2 people saying, "Oh, immigrants ought to be shot," and all this sort of stupid, right? But that's
Mm-hmm.
not me. I'm not responsible for what anyone else says. And the fact of the matter is, people say things like that. They don't really mean it. They're just angry, you know? And this is the thing, like, and so sneaky BBC journalists recording people. And like I said, with me, they were saying I ought to be arrested for saying that the Southport killer's not Welsh. You know what I'm saying?
Mm.
It's an absolute joke, that is.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And basically, when you said that there were like so many lefties come in and all manner of different things, because you spoke about so many different things there, the police, the way that they act, just because you're exercising your right to protest, all of these things. You mentioned as well that the really underhandedness of the police that I see, in my opinion, is that they won't just hassle you either. They'll often hassle your family and follow your family, or follow. Do you mention that they were following your girlfriend as well?
Yeah. Well, she got the train to work, and this guy was following her, blatantly following her. And she said she got off the train, he followed her. And what they do is, when they follow me, they don't follow me so I don't know I'm being followed. They follow me so I know I'm being followed, right?
Yeah, it's like
Um,
an intimidation. It's like
when I lived,
intimidation.
I lived in Roos, right, for quite a few years, and I was involved in big demonstrations in those days. And they parked outside my house a van and a car for 2 weeks, right? And they did shift changes when the van would drive off and a new van would take its place, right? And I rang my solicitor because I went outside and said to them, "What do you want?" They said nothing. And I said, "What are you parked outside my house for?" They said, "None of your business, right? Nothing to do with you." So I got my solicitor to ring them, and they said, "It's a security operation with the airport. It's nothing to do with your client," right? But they sat outside my house. Literally, my house is there. They were about, and there was a field on the other side. They were like 2 houses up on the other side, and they sat there for 2 weeks, right? But if I drove off, I said to my daughter, "Let's go," when one of my daughters was living with me then. I said, "Let's go out and see if they follow us." And they didn't. I drove down to the shop. They didn't follow me. I went back home. They were still there, right? They sat there for 2 weeks, right? And they've done this to me loads of times, right? And this, what I was on about with my girlfriend, this guy followed her. She went into a shop and he followed her into the shop and he picked up a drink, right? She said she darted out of the shop. He put the drink down and darted out behind her as well, right? And that was going on. That went on for about 2 weeks where they were just following her and following me. And what it is she's not political. So she's saying, "Oh, I don't want people following me. I don't want people following me. I don't want people coming to my work and all this." And I'm, "Oh, right." The thing is, that's the idea of it. That's to hassle her so she gets on my case and makes me stop what I'm doing. This is what they do, you know? Like when I said I got raided, at that time I got raided for the inciting racial hatred when I said that they should be searched before going on trains with rucksacks. My children were small then, they had their laptops taken, you know? So my missus at the time was on my case then, going, "They've taken the girls' laptops." And you know what I mean? It's just drama. It's, they want to cause social grief.
We'll go
Basically,
from
I'm saying,
whatever the start of what we were talking about was, again, that particular things. You mentioned that the police were harassing when they raided and took your kids' laptops. It created a lot of friction between you and your girlfriend and stuff like that.
yeah, well, it was that was my wife at the
Oh,
time.
sorry. My apologies. My sincere apologies.
That's all right. They took the laptops of my children, caused murder for me with her because she was going mental with me because she wasn't involved in anything that I do. Like my girlfriend now is not, she's not political, but she's been followed by the police, and she doesn't like it. You know what I mean? Well, why would she like it? But the idea is that they want her to have a go at me, make my life hard so that I give up doing what I'm doing, But like what they don't realize is when they hassle me, it doesn't make me want to stop. It makes me want to do it more, right? Because when I was in prison, I was laying on a bed, right, day after day, and I was thinking, wait till I get out of here. I'm going to call a demo here. I'm going to call a demo there. And I was thinking, I'll show them, And that's the thing. It's like, this is the kind of person that I am. Like, I was in prison for defending myself. As far as I'm concerned, I shouldn't have been in prison, right? And like, all the times that I've been raided about 3 times, right? Not being done for anything, right? And I've had my computers taken, I've had my phones taken, I've had air rifles taken and kept for ages, you know what I mean? While they test them and all this sort of thing. And like, I'm not a criminal, but it's a hassle of it all, And then you've got to go to the police station to get your stuff back and all this sort of thing, And it's just hassle. And I don't break the law. I am legally demonstrating, And this is just like if our legal system wasn't completely bent, you could sue them, But like, I know a guy that sued the police for trying to stitch him up, and it cost him 30 grand. But he got his money back eventually. But the Met Police dragged the case out for so long. People like us, we can't afford to sue the police, right?
Yeah.
And you know what I mean? So they can hassle us. Because if they do this to the lefties, there's human rights lawyers queuing up to work for free for them. You know what I mean? And they get compensation all the time. But like they can hassle us whenever they want, you know? And we're not doing anything wrong. Like, this is the thing. But like, I'm not going to stop doing things, you know? Although like now, the people that are being arrested are on like this guy called Active Patriot's been arrested because he's I gotta watch what I say really, because he posted up something where he said that he'd spoken to some people in the Pakistani community and they said that some Afghans had told these Pakistanis that they're waiting for the nod to do a terror attack, right? That's, I won't say exactly what it was. And he's been arrested and they slammed his front door off the hinges and he says they locked his house unlocked for 24 hours while he was in custody. And now he's banned from the internet and everything, you know?
Yeah,
and it's just
horrendous.
Like, sometimes now I'm typing something and I think, oh, do I really want to say that? Because I could be arrested. I've got to think about everything I say and do because I don't want to give them an excuse to raid my house, you know? And it's like, I would never type anything illegal or racist, right? But I've got to think, oh, could they, because sometimes they'll arrest you just because they want you to clarify what you said. You know what I mean? So it's an excuse. They think, oh, well, he said this. Well, because when they interview you, they say, oh, what did you mean by this? What did you mean by that? You know? And then most of the time it'll be no further action, but you've had your house raided, you've had all your stuff taken, you know what I mean? And it's just the hassle of it all.
Yeah,
so,
it's other things then, like social stigma and stuff like that as well. You know, oh, Joe had his house raided the other day, or I had my house raided the other day. You know, people think, oh, what the hell's he doing? You know, like as if you're some big shot criminal or something like that. I was thinking, if you wanted my clarification, couldn't you have just given me a phone call? Couldn't you have just called me and said, what do you mean by this?
They, like, when I got arrested last time, they took me down the lane, and I didn't even notice. They just put me in a van and took me. And my girlfriend said all the neighbours were hanging out of their windows watching. Do you know what I mean? So it was just like, I didn't even notice that because I was more focused on what was going on, like with me. But like all the neighbours were there. None of them have said anything to me, but they were all there watching me be arrested for nothing, like, as well. You know what I mean? So you know, but this is the tyranny that we're living in there. And like I said with that thing, look it up. You know, that in the Public Order Act, the truth is not a defence, right? So if they arrest you for inciting racial hatred, you can say, like, one time I had a website and I was listing, I wasn't saying anything, I was just listing all anti-white attacks, right? And a lot of those anti-white attacks now, although there's millions of them online, all the old ones that I used to, that I put on this website, they're all gone. They've all been deleted from Google, right? But all I was doing was listing anti-white attacks. I had the police write to me. They wanted a meeting with me, and I went to the meeting, and I was told, even listing attacks like that, if they can interpret it that you're trying to incite racial hatred, you could be arrested. So they said, my advice is to take the side.
That's horrendous. And that's why I disagree with the whole thing about hate crimes and any kind of hatred, because it's completely subjective. You know, you're getting locked up or under suspicion or whatever it may be because of something that is completely at the whims of however a police chief or whoever else simply happens to feel that day. And there's no objective standard or anything like that whatsoever for that kind of stuff. And that's why I completely agree with the entire, you know, classification. You know, it's awful. It's absolutely awful. So we had a couple of connection issues this evening, ladies and gentlemen, but it's been okay for the most part. I think we're iron them out. But I can't remember exactly what I was saying, to be honest. More so to do with the fact that trial. Yeah. So they were getting you on things like racial hatred and all of this stuff. And I completely disagree with the classification of any kind of hate crime purely because it's completely subjective and it's based on whatever police chief, whatever court, whatever judge, whatever legislator happens to feel that day. And as we've seen, they've been politicized to no end, where you can't talk about things that are actually happening for the reasons that they are happening because they've been deemed as quote-unquote inciting racial hatred or whatever. It's the exact same thing that led to the cover-up of all the girls being, by gangs, all of this stuff, because it was going to, I think the other term they used was like inflame community tensions and stuff like that. But the way you said that the truth is not a defense, that's like, the minute you say that is like, well, what kind of justice system do we have? What kind of anything system do we have if the truth is not the thing that, it's weird. The truth has been put on trial almost. The truth has been put on trial and convicted of being offensive, and that's where we are in this country.
I was just saying then when I got cut off that I had the website and I was listing all anti-white attacks.
Yeah, that was it.
And I was told I had to have a meeting with the police and they threatened to arrest me because they said even listing attacks like that, if they can basically say and prove that I'm trying to incite racial hatred, even though I can just say, well, they're all true cases.
Mm-hmm.
What's your problem, right? Their problem is they think I'm doing it to incite racial hatred. They're going to nick me, right? And Sam Melia got 2 years.
Mm.
And that was his first ever offence. He's never been in trouble before. First offence, right? Now, any other sort of crime, you wouldn't be jailed on your first offence, right? You would get a suspended sentence, right? If you've never been in trouble in your life, right? Unless it's something really, really bad. You know what I mean? So it's like, obviously these prosecutions are entirely political. And so many people have been arrested. And, lately they've just been arresting loads of people, but high profile people, But the fact of the matter is, when they arrest you, is even if nothing comes of it, they can keep you on bail for up to a year, even longer, right? And they can give you conditions that you're not to use the internet, you're not to attend a demonstration, you're not allowed to associate with certain people. So they can basically just neuter you, And then at the end of it, because that time I got arrested for saying those things about Muslim terrorists, right? I was on bail for 18 months. I had to go to Cardiff Bay Police Station once a month. Every time I went there, they were like, oh, we haven't done the paperwork yet. Come back next month. We'll rebail you, right? So then eventually I went there and the policewoman come out and went, oh, no further action, right? And that was it. Just like dismissed me, off you pop. And she said, come back next week and you can have your stuff back. So I get my laptop back and my phone back and all that. But I'd already bought new ones, because when they take my laptop or take my phone, I'm not using it once they've had their paws on it, right? Because you don't know what they're going to put in there, And I always think they could put something on there like illegal bomb manual or something and then come back in 6 months' time and nick you for it.
Yeah,
you know
exactly.
What I mean? You just don't know, do you?
Or potentially even worse things, worse kind of material and all manner of other things. There's no end of things that they can put on there, you know what I mean?
Once they get their hands on a laptop or a phone, they can keep it as far as I'm concerned. If I get them back, I'll just sell them,
Let somebody else deal with the problem.
Yeah, and it was for one of those phones that slides up,
Yeah.
And when they gave it back to me, it was all loose. So clearly they'd undone it with a screwdriver and pissed about with the inside of it.
Yeah, they tampered with it.
That one, straight, I just recycled that one, I just once they take my phone, I'm just buying a new phone. I forget about that one. I'm not having it back when you've had your filthy paws on it, Because you just can't trust them. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think this Yeah, but then we're always told then to trust authorities and so on. But it's like, what reasons have you given us to? You know what I mean? What reasons have you given us to?
Real criminals are taking a piss, right? All these gangs, right, are running riots, and the police are spending massive amounts of time just monitoring the internet. And it's 12,000 people a year being done for comments they've made on the internet. 12,000 people a year. So you can only imagine the workforce they've got of people that are just literally monitoring the internet all day. And I'll tell you this now, right? When there was that riot in Dover in 2016, I think it was, there was a massive riot in Dover, and I was down there, right? A load of people went to prison. I think about 80 people went to prison for it, right? It was a big anti-immigration demo. They bust in about 1,000 odd lefties from all over the country, all dressed in black, and there was murder. It was a 5-hour riot there, right? Anyway, when people went to court, it transpired that certain police officers were allocated to certain people that day. So it was like, you watch Marsh, you watch Jones. So I would have had one, definitely, right? There were officers whose job was to make contact, to just get eyes on you and keep their eyes on you all day, right? Until you broke the law and they can arrest you, right? So bearing that in mind, I wouldn't put it past them that they haven't got people in call centers going into work. You watch Marsh today, watch his Twitter, watch his this, watch his YouTube, see what he's posting, and you know what I mean? And then they're probably going, oh, Saj, he's just posted another video. Oh, Saj, do you know what I mean? Like, I can imagine that is what is going on, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
When they're arresting 12,000 people a year for that, you know? And like, real crime is just, they're not interested, you know? Like, I know people who work in shops, the shops are getting burgled, they're phoning the police, and the police don't even say, we'll send someone down to take forensic. They say, can you drop the CCTV up to the station? They don't even send someone down to get the tape. They'll say, can you drop it to us? Where years ago, they would come down and take fingerprints and all that sort of thing. They don't even do that now. You know? It's unbelievable. Like, it's just our police force, and now they are basically just political enforcers. That's
Mm-hmm.
what they are. They're not a police force anymore. They're there just to protect the government from criticism. And that's a
Exactly.
fact.
I say
And
it.
to protect a multicultural society from criticism as well.
Yeah, it's exactly how I say it. It's that the police now are there to protect and serve has changed now, whereas it may have once point, and my camera's gone out of focus again, whereas at one point it might have meant protect and serve the people. It's now clear that it means protect and serve the government interest and protect and serve whatever the current political narrative is. And that's why, again, you have people being released from prison in many instances, you know, murderers that then go on to commit a murder the same day or the day after or whatever, child being let out of prison early in many instances, child being not even going to prison, being let off pretty much free to walk around the same communities as where their victims are and, you know, continue to terrorize them just with their mere presence every single day. But you put out a spicy tweet. You know, there was the British Transport Police put out an incident recently of some guy. I can't remember his name. He wasn't of native British descent. Let's just put it that way. But over a ticket dispute on a train, I believe it was, he strangled and you know, assaulted one of the ticket master people. You know, the ticket dispensers, and I think he got like 19 months or something like that. And then you look at Lucy Connolly, for example. She got 31 months for a tweet, which she later went on again to delete and apologize for. It's like, it's kangaroo. Kangaroo is being too generous in many instances. You know, it's horrendous. And then exactly how targeted they are. You mentioned that kind of reminds me of what happened on January 6th in America, whereby we now know that there were so many plainclothes FBI agents in the crowd that were directly monitoring people. And you mentioned like there were police going down there saying, like, oh, you were on Marsh, look out for anything you can get in for, you're on whoever else. But they'll never do that for the lefties, you know? It's all completely one way.
They let them run riot, don't they? Well, like just not long before the Southport riots, there was the Hare Hills riots, where they set fire to buses, and that's a foreign community there, and nothing happened there. There was no massive jail sentences. There was no wanted faces in the papers. There was nothing. It was a completely different show, that was.
I'm pretty sure the councillor, Mothin Ali, he was one of the ones, the Greens councillor that runs the place, he was one of the ones throwing rocks and rioting with them. As far as I'm aware, you know?
He's just said now that he reckons that some bloke walked up to him and racially abused him and threatened him outside the train station in London. And he tried to get his phone out to film it, but he didn't manage to. And like, the police are hunting this guy. I think it's made up, you know, because he's had a massive amount of publicity from it. There's all the London train stations are bristling with CCTV. If it happened, that guy's getting nicked, right? If he doesn't get nicked, then it never happened, you know? And that's my theory. I know I'm a conspiracy theorist, but, you know, I think it's a damn good bet. Like,
the only thing between a conspiracy theory and the truth at this point is around 3 to 6 months, I think. Maybe not even there. Yeah.
It's a joke. But it's just like misinformation, this misinformation, that, you know?
And it's just used as a term to try and stop people from speaking. I see that now they call it misinformation, but it's just used as a term to stop people from speaking.
And look at the censorship we're up against as well. Like, you know, my YouTube, I've got 41,000 followers, right? And I've got some videos with hundreds of thousands of views on, right? And now I'm putting videos on and they're lucky to get 200-300 views. So, because really speaking, 41,000 people should be getting a notification if I post a video, you know? Like, I haven't posted many videos lately, but, you know, when I do, they're getting the views on them are just a joke. Like, they're, you know?
Yeah, it's below me. My channel, for example, on YouTube is a lot smaller, but again, I post a video, sometimes it literally only gets like 15 views or something like that. And I'm like, surely 1,500 people should be getting a notification at very least.
I mean, you should be at least getting the amount of views that you've got followers, you know? But they will not promote our stuff. Like, as simple as that, you know?
I suppose the one thing, not everybody's going to tune in for every video, I suppose. But yeah, it's like when you've got a channel of like 41,000 or like in my case, a channel of 1,500 or whatever, and you're getting, you know, a fraction of the viewership. That makes it suspicious then. I see it on X all the time, like accounts with like 60 followers, and then they keep coming up in my feed, my For You page with like 120, 600k views on a quote tweet or whatever. I'm like, there's something going on here. And the amount of, you know, influence you can buy nowadays.
Years ago, like I used to, when they did the first expose on me in 2010, I was doing videos with a balaclava on, right? And they basically did the Scooby-Doo ending on me. That's what the show was about. They were unmasking me, right? But those videos I used to do then, I used to get 30,000 views a day, you know? And before long, they just kept me off there. But that was like, when it was a free run on there, right? That was it. If you posted a video that people were interested in, you get massive views, you know? And they just completely, you know, took me down. And the reason, you know, I built this one back up and now it's pointless. You know, that's why I'm hardly posting on there, because it's just, you know, what's the point when 300 people are going to see it, you know?
Especially when it's some of the issues that we talk about, you know, are very, very important issues. And again, it seems that you talk about important issues. There's the massive censorship apparatus that wants to stop that message from getting out there a lot of the time with algorithms and so on.
Well, I did that little video outside Cardiff Central, Cardiff Castle, where the rainbow crossing. I did a freedom of information request, asked them how much it cost. They said 19 grand. I did a small video on my phone, right, when I was just happened to be getting a sandwich one day by there. And it had like 500,000 views, you know? And it's just like, and now I'm down to 300.
Mm-hmm.
So work that one out, you know?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But
Absolutely.
they'll never silence them. At the end of the day, like I say to people, like I work in the building trade. I travel around a lot working. I meet people, you know, plumbers, electricians, like all different trades. And every time I don't like, you know, go ranting about my beliefs to people, right? But like, I don't have to, because every time I go somewhere and I see new guys, they say, what do you think about all these folks coming over here? Or, you know, the grooming gangs and this and that, or that guy that got murdered the other day. And it's just like, everyone's on about it, right? And like, I have never, ever encountered anyone who disagreed, you know? And this is just like, you know, you think that you would. At some stage, you're going to get somebody that doesn't agree with you. But everyone that you speak to has got the same views as us. And that's why they don't want any of us to get too big.
Mm-hmm.
Unless you're controlled and you're pushing out a narrative they want and they approve of.
Yeah.
You know, a controlled opposition narrative like certain people that we won't name, you know?
Mm.
But all the people who are truly radicals, right, and dissidents, they're being silenced.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a fact, guys. You know? Anyone with a massive audience who's allowed to do whatever they want and go wherever they want, then you have to think that is suspicious. Because people like Matt Collett and Laura Towner, they're kicked off Twitter. They're not allowed on there. I'm on Twitter. I'm paying for my Twitter. And it just doesn't grow. It just doesn't. I might get 10 new followers a week, like, where my previous one, I had 11,000 followers and it kicked me off there, you know? And you set one up and it would fly. If you were posting stuff that was people were interested in, it'd fly. And now it's just like, it's like no one can see you, you know? Which is exactly what is happening, you know? But, you know, we just got to keep going. It's all we can do, isn't it?
Exactly. They're trying to play the...
People have faced worse tyrannies than this before now, you know?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It's the classic thing. They're trying to play the out of sight, out of mind game. You know, if people can't see the content being produced or they can't see the people who are being active or whatever, then people don't think about the political issues. If you don't think about the political issues, well, you're not going to campaign on them. Then the regime is just going to keep gradually moving forward anyway. So that's why I can't get when people, I get it when people like don't necessarily want to, you know, if they have certain views or whatever, maybe they don't want to express them because they may lose a job or whatever. I've been through that. It's like the one thing that I hope people don't do is then stop thinking about it, because if they stop thinking about it, then the change is just not going to be made because people are not going to be active enough to remain in the game, so to speak. And I feel that starts, however, when people stop talking about it, when people stop talking about the issues and all of these other things. I hate this webcam when I'm sat by here so much.
Well, you can see when you came on that bridge drop with us, you can see the support from the public.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
You know, it was absolutely massive, you know? It's just like, when you count the handful of people that give you abuse, it's nothing to the amount of people who are shouting, going, yes, and all that sort of thing, you know? You can see the general public do not like the way things are and the way things are going, you know? And that's why they try to silence us, but they'll never silence us. Because like I say, every day I speak to people, you know, everywhere I go, I speak to people about it. Like even people who've never been interested before, now they are interested because they know now it's affecting them. Because you're never going to get, if you were young now, right, and you were just starting out in life, you're not going to be able to get a rented property. You're not going to be able to afford to buy a house, right? And that's the least of your worries. Not being able to get a house, right? Is being stabbed to death, like, you know what I mean? When you're walking your dog and all the rest of it, like, it's just all the other good shit that comes with it, that we never asked for. We were never asked. Even like I was saying on the podcast with Matt Collett the other night, like if we was to have a government that was going to deport people, we have to deport millions of people because there are so many people here who are no benefit to us at all. And like people always say, oh, these ethno-nationalists, they want an all-white country and they'll make people have DNA tests. No, they will not, right? We just say that this country and all countries should be majority white people, right? This is our land. Our forefathers fought and died for this country. I don't mind there being some foreigners here and black people here, but not that many that they've taken over and colonized whole cities. And there was a video yesterday of some girl in London, and this guy was threatening her with saying he's got a sword, and he said this is a Somali area.
Yeah.
Did you see that? Like that's not acceptable. And like so many people have come to this country, they've got no intention of integrating. They've got no intention of ever working either, right? You've got like something like 11,000 foreign criminals in our prisons. They have to go back. And if people have come here, even if they've been here for 20, 30 years, if they've never had a job, they have to go back because they are no benefit to this country at all. And all the people that have committed crimes, there's like 100-odd gangs in London, right? And these gangs are massive, right? And all they do is make nuisance of themselves, right? Selling drugs and having gang wars, right? They all need to go back. It's not, I don't think that's a very radical position. That should just be common sense, right? That we've got Albanian gangs murdering each other in Cardiff. Why are Albanians here in the first place? There's no war in Albania. Now, why are they coming here as refugees? There's large numbers of them are just coming here literally to involve themselves in the drug trade. It's they have to go back, and this is why Nigel Farage, if he was to become the next prime minister, he may do a half-baked job. But even if he just closed our border and started getting rid of criminals, at least we'd be that much better off, wouldn't we? But whether he would do that is another thing, isn't it? Because he says he's going to do something, the next day he gets a bit of flack and he shits himself. I thought, I didn't really mean I was going to do that. Oh God, it's just like, man up, right? The future of this country depends on us closing our borders and starting to repatriate people, and I really don't think that makes me a Nazi to say that, because our people should come first.
Yeah, and it's the exact same way. People forget, because the way that people have got into thinking now, where they think it's virtuous to give their country away and not to celebrate anything to do with them, and to see themselves as these evil oppressors. The only thing is that these people genuinely think that everybody around the world thinks that way. And I'm like, no, they don't. So Hamza Yusuf, for example, the Scottish guy, saying he's a son of the soil in Pakistan. I'd be like, many of these other people that have come here with that nationalist, with their own nationalism. And as a result, then that's why they set up these enclaves. That's why you have on the Scottish Parliament floor, you have them being lectured about the fact that they have white people in just positions of employment and in positions of government. Well, last I checked, the way that the Scots descend from, they are a white population, and that's just the reality. So you would expect that the Scottish people would have white people in those positions. But they complain about it, and they try to highlight it because they want to further their own political ambitions, and they want to do so in many ways to the detriment of the country itself, because they're working on foreign interests, because exactly as he says, he's a son of the soil in Pakistan. So a lot of these people,
when they get power, they immediately start advocating for their people.
exactly.
That's what they do. And like, we've got no one advocating for our people except Nigel Farage. And you see that I see a video of him yesterday, and he's talking about foreign criminals, and you've got all these liberal women, like they overflowing with suicidal empathy, and
The
they're sat
feminists,
behind him, pulling faces of him,
yeah,
faces of him when he's talking about deporting people who are here hurting our people and killing our people.
I think
right?
I think they were Lib Dems. I think they were Lib
God,
Dems, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah,
they are horrid, right?
Mhm.
Absolutely horrid, right? They would rather children die than be called racist. That's what they would prefer to, as long as they don't get called racist, they couldn't give a shit who dies. And it's an absolute outrage.
And the classic saying where like the tyrant will happily burn their town or burn their country to the ground to rule over the ashes. You know what I mean? That's what we're seeing now, is that these people, they don't care about protecting the kids of their own communities and whatever else. They care about, I call it their little globalist baby, like nation of sanctuary or whatever. It's like their nurture instinct has gone so off the rails or whatever that they only care about this globalist, political agenda baby, and everything else can fall by the wayside and die for all they care. And that's why I think you see one of the most, at least from my perspective, I don't use any, too harsh adjectives or whatever, other than like, I suppose vindictive and arrogant, especially with regards to some of the heinous crimes that we've seen from the rape gangs and stuff like that, is it Jess Phillips? Jess Phillips, she's the current safeguarding minister, if I'm not mistaken. And that, you got people coming out and saying that she doesn't want to know, she doesn't care, she's completely disinterested on her phone when the gangs are being discussed. She's basically laughing at things going on her phone. It's like, wow, where's your humanity? Where's your heart gone,
Yeah, but if something happens to the Muslim community in a city,
oh God forbid,
the first one windmilling on their behalf. They just don't care. The people they don't care about are our people.
And that's fact, isn't it? And that's why, exactly as you mentioned, we got nobody advocating for the native people of these lands. So it falls on us. And that's why I think a lot of people now are coming to this sort of nationalist viewpoint almost reluctantly, being like, well, hang on, I've got nobody to advocate for me, so I need to advocate for myself.
Every step that we would have to take to save this country and save our people, every step that we would have to take would make you a racist, right? So, at the end of the day, when people call me racist, I don't care. I don't care. I don't say I'm not racist. I just say whatever, because that's all they've got, the fear of racism, People are just like, they got this, one of my daughters, like, I was saying something about the hotels one day, and she said, that's racist, that is what. And I just said, you tell me now what I just said that's racist, right? And she went, oh, I don't know. And I said, you don't. You've been programmed. It's like a snap response. As soon as somebody says, oh, that hotel down there is full of, Afghans and blah, 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 and they shouldn't be in there because they're going to be housed before our people, they're programmed to say that's racist. But when questioned, she said, oh, I don't know why I said that. And I said, no, you don't, do you? But you still said it, didn't you? And this is it, see? People, like, they're programmed to automatically attack, The
state school system doing an absolutely great job.
Yeah, exactly.
That is and I've had that conversation with my dad as well when I was sort of around, like, secondary school age and then going into college and stuff like that. I would have been one of these people that it's a natural response, it's programmed into you. through all of the narratives. Literally everything in school was multiculturalism and all of this stuff pushed into our brains from like 6 years old. And then even then, I would be like trying to play the stats game with him, and I'd be like using the typical arguments about why the stats aren't accurate and everything like that. But it's just clear. And now that I've grown up a little bit and I'm seeing things a little bit differently, it's weird now. It's almost like the roles have swapped almost, where I've gone further to the other side than even he is now. But I'm just like looking at things like the state school system, exactly as you said, and then it's deliberately trying to drive that wedge again between like you and your daughter, for example, the same way the police are trying to drive the wedge between you and your girlfriend and you and your ex-wife or whatever. The state is constantly trying to drive wedges in people's families and destroy the families. And that's ultimately going to be the number one thing that ensures that we're in a one-party tyrannical state. Because the only thing, like men in particular, they think that they will advocate more for, and that they will willingly, many instances happily, lay down their life for, and be called all manner of evil name and suffer all kind of persecution, will be for their family, will be for their wife, will be for their son, daughter, whoever it is. And that, you know, will ensure in many ways that they'll stand up to a tyrannical government that wants access to those children to indoctrinate them and all stuff like that. So we can't let the family die. You know, that's at least the way I see it at the moment.
If you go on my Odyssey, I've got the 2010 documentary on there where they did a stitch-up job on me. But like they tried to associate me with Nazis all the way through it. But I'm not in any of the footage or any of the photos of people doing that, because I'm not a Nazi, right? But I am an advocate for the white race, right? And I am an ethno-nationalist. But I'm not a Nazi. I don't go to places and do Nazi salutes and everything. And those people really f it up for me, like, you know, because I'm saying, you know, we're just Welsh people. We're Welsh nationalists, right? And, but, you know, and other people. And I don't know whether these people go to demos just deliberately to fuck things up, like, you know, or whether that's just the way they are, like, you know, but like, you're not going to win the public over by doing that, you know? So this is what we do now, is we say we're Welsh nationalists, right? And they say, oh no, well, Welsh nationalists like Plaid and Yes Cymru, they just hate the English, right? Or they hate the English. They don't want the English colonizers here, but they're quite happy to flood us with Afghans and Somalians, right?
Yeah.
So nationalists, they are not, right? And they say that if they were to get power, they would rejoin, they want Wales to rejoin the EU so that they want Welsh independence, but they're not going to go for that in their first term anyway. So all these twats following Plaid thinking they're going to get independence, they're not getting it, right? But if they did get independence, they would then give that independence away by joining the EU. They're absolutely deranged, right? They're not nationalists. So I started calling myself Welsh nationalist deliberately so that I could have this conversation and say, I am a Welsh nationalist and you're not, right? Because this is nationalism means you put your people first, right? And our people are white people, right? Welsh people are white, right? And you can come and live here and they can give you a passport and everything, but you will never be Welsh, right? If you are from Africa or Afghanistan, you won't be Welsh, right? And these twats implied that they want people coming here and they're fanatical about the language, right? There's people coming here under their watch who don't even want to speak English, never mind Welsh, right? You know, but they're cool with that. But they're saying the Welsh language can't die out. The Welsh language can't die out. But they are bringing people here who've got no intention whatsoever of ever speaking Welsh. They don't even want to speak English a lot of them, you know? So their whole argument, a lot of them, is mental. And if you look on Twitter, you can see them. They're posting grievance about the English people from 1258 the English colonized in Wales. Like, excuse me, there are more important things happening today than what happened hundreds of years ago, right?
Yeah.
We are now being colonized by the third world, right? And you're still holding grievances. Oh, honestly, and there's even been people saying Caerphilly Castle was built by English colonizers and it should be knocked down. Because a lot of the castles were built by the English or the Normans or whoever, right? They should be knocked down because they are a reminder of our colonial past. And no, they are beautiful, parts of our history, right?
Mm.
I don't care who built them, right? I like to go and visit these castles, right? I don't want them knocked down because some twat has got a grievance with the English from the 12th century.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They're off their heads, and they hate it. You can see, if you read the hate pages, they go, nah, she's not a Welsh nationalist. He's an English nationalist, and he likes you know what I mean? He loves all this sort of And there's the people that, there's groups in Swansea that do banner drops as well, right? We know them. And they use Union Jack, right? Now, a lot of people in Wales, you know that they don't like the Union Jack, right?
Mm.
They don't like the Union Jack because Wales is not represented on the Union Jack, right?
Yeah.
Because at the time that flag was made, Wales was considered to be a region of England, right?
Yeah.
So they've got a big, big, big grievance with it. They call it the butcher's apron, right? Now, so I say, I don't mind the Union Jack, right? Like, our grandfathers fought under that flag in 2 world wars, right? But just to save the unnecessary beef, we won't use that flag, right? It's just because there was a fella, and he was with Cullen off of Central Club. He went down to the roundabouts down Cogan and he put Union Jack flags up, and they went absolutely berserk over it, right? All the Welsh so-called nationalists saying, oh my God, I'm going to rip that down, I'm going to torch it, and all this sort of thing, right? So it's pointless beef, right? It's really pointless, So we don't use that flag, But they still hate me and call me an English nationalist. And they're saying that I'm an English nationalist because I want Reform to win the election, right? I only want Reform to win because I don't want my country destroyed.
Mm-hmm.
These idiots think they're protecting Wales, and they're not. They want the existing order to stay as it is, which is Labour and Plaid running the Senedd, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they hate us. They're spending more money on trees in Africa than they're spending on this country, Wales, right? And all Plaid would really have to do to win would be to actually be Welsh nationalists. If they actually were Welsh nationalists who would say every day, the refugees, we're going to put the Welsh people first. If they did that, they would win, But they can't. They can't. They're just globalists, and they've got their heads full of the climate change as well, and they're just like, they don't even hide it. They don't ever make a speech and say, we're going to put the indigenous Welsh people first. They're always refugees. There's no such thing as an illegal immigrant, he said the other day, that twat.
And they even deny that the Welsh... They even deny that the Welsh people are even a distinct group. I'm not sure I think you saw the video earlier of one of the Plaid Cymru reps speaking. It's like, Wales isn't about being Welsh, isn't who you are or where you come from or anything like that. Nothing to do with ancestry or anything like that. It's about belonging. It's about all of these other things. I'm like, well, no, no, they're a distinct people, like other people around the world, like all of the people around the world. They're a distinct people, but again, they'd never, ever say that about the target groups that they want to bring in. They'd never, ever say that about a foreign group that, that is all about belonging for any other foreign group. Don't matter where they're from. It's like, it's absolutely awful. Like your supposed nationalists have denied your very existence as a Welsh person, right? And not only that, what gets me is that I think they're preying so much or playing so much on people's ignorance a lot of the time. We saw the video before. There was the lady. You could tell she's an old lady from the way that she spoke. Bless her heart, thinking that they were voting Plaid Cymru because immigration was too high, not even realizing that Plaid Cymru want to open that door even more. And I'm like, well, what can you do? What can you do? I'm like,
why are you going to vote for Plaid? He's Welsh, isn't he?
Yeah, he's Welsh, isn't he? I'm like,
shoot me now.
But yeah, that gets me when I see in the face of everything, and I see it. There was somebody in my comment section. I'm not sure if they were actually Irish, but they had an Irish flag in the name and they put an Irish flag in the message. But basically going about, oh well, you guys are getting, what you deserve or whatever for all historic injustices and whatever else, all of this stuff. I'm like, well, you guys are suffering the same. If you're genuinely Irish, you guys are suffering the same. We're all in the same boat. Shouldn't we all be rowing in the same direction? We're all facing the same threat. And you can say that even if, for example, you don't like the union. And I happen to think, at least at this moment in time, that all of the nationalist groups, all of the ethnic groups of the British Isles, so to speak, are better under a kind of together banner. It's like, separately we're warring tribes, but when under the banner of Britain, so to speak, about a quarter of the globe was under Britain's rule. They had one of the grandest empires in history. I see a lot of nationalists thinking that way, and I understand the historical grievances, don't get me wrong, there's a lot of them to go over, but at this moment in time I completely understand what you say. We're more pressing concerns.
I think some of these Welsh twats, right, they think that allowing Wales to be flooded with foreigners is sticking it to the English in some way, right? That's what they think, because that's what they think in Ireland as well. It's like some of them, the so-called nationalists over there, Sinn Féin, they think they're sticking it to, the racist English, because they're allowing their country to be swamped with foreigners. They won't have a country soon, right? But like a lot of them over there, they've said that the nationalists and the loyalists, they've put aside their grievances, a lot of them, and they can go back to fighting each other after they've sorted this out. But if they don't sort this out and start deporting people, they won't have an island.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. I made the joke because I love it. Whenever the Six Nations come around, I used to love going down Wetherspoons with my friends. And whenever Wales and England would be playing, whenever Wales would score a try, we'd all start chanting, you can shove your effing chariots up your arse and all stuff like that, and having a great time. But I'm like, we're not gonna be able to do that if Wales and England don't exist anymore. We're not going to be able to have that little fun rivalry and the sticking it to the English if the English and Welsh don't exist anymore. And that's exactly what we mean. It's like, what are you going to do? You're going to allow your nation to be completely overrun with other people from around the world to stick it to the English. Meanwhile, precisely, the English are dealing with the exact same problem, in many of their areas as well. And it's the incomprehensibility of
fight your face,
yes,
that's what they're doing. So that's how retarded they are, though. But this is how Plaid usually win, like in Gwynedd or Carmarthenshire, because people literally think they're Welsh nationalists and that they put Wales first, but they literally don't.
And they think
you've only got to watch them. You've only got to watch them for a few days to realise where their priorities are, and they're not with the Welsh people.
And then they genuinely think reformer English nationalists, when if you ask an actual English nationalist, they'll say, what the hell are you talking about?
That's what's happened in Caerphilly, see? What's happened in Caerphilly is that Labour lefty idiots, have voted for Plaid just to stick it to reform, right? Because they're happy, they're that stupid, they're happy with the status quo. They're happy with the way things are. Because when people say we need to scrap the Senedd, right? because the Senedd, like when the vote happened for the Senedd, I was saying to you at the time, don't vote for that devolution because it'll just be another layer of corruption. That's what it will be, you know? And I knew that that's what it would be. And it's never been any use to the Welsh people. And it's in their interest to keep that going. And all the stupid people think, oh, well, it's for Wales, it's Senedd, it's for Wales. What the do they ever do for us? They don't do anything for us. They take from us, right? 113,000 people have been fined for going over 20 miles an hour, right? 113,000 people, right? Loads of lads who work with me have had, one guy's had 3 times he's been caught. He's had to pay a fine twice with points, and he's going to go on a course 3 times. And he says he's never had a speeding ticket in his life. You know, when it was 30, now he's driving at 20 miles an hour. Sometimes you could walk faster, you know, and it's just like, it's so easy to go over 20. No one ever voted for that.
No.
You know, the Senedd are persecuting our people. They don't give a shit about us. Yet all these idiots think that because it's in Wales and it's Welsh, somehow it's good for us.
Makes me laugh.
It's like there's no talking to these people. Like that old woman saying, he's Welsh, isn't he? He's Welsh, isn't he? Well, we're all Welsh, right? You know what I mean? It means nothing. Like, just because they're Welsh doesn't mean they're going to help you. Because they're only in it for themselves and for all the globalists they've got in their heads.
Absolutely.
You know? They've got a target of 50 million trees to be planted in Uganda. They've already planted 20 odd million trees. And I asked them on a freedom of information request, why are they planting trees in Uganda? And they said, because trees planted in Uganda are better for the environment than trees planted in Wales. Have you ever heard anything as stupid as that?
And people will believe it.
Yeah. They've spent millions on trees in Africa. There is no benefit to the Welsh people at all, and we've got nothing. They're telling us we've got no money. You know what I mean? While they're just throwing money at Africa. And they want the Crown Estate money, right? You know what the Crown Estate is? It's all the money for all the attractions and the beaches and everything. All goes to Westminster. It's something like 80 million or something like that. It's, maybe more than I don't really know, right? It's a lot of money. And all the Welsh twats like Yes Cymru and that, we need to devolve the Crown Estate. Why? So they can have that money to spend on Africa. Because they won't spend it on us. If they got that money now, they wouldn't spend it on the Welsh people. They'll just go and find another African country to spend it in. You know? It's just like the Senedd is so bent, it's unbelievable, you know? And yet people are saying, well, you know, how dare they say we need to scrap the Senedd? Honestly,
and meanwhile,
they're all turkey voting for Christmas, is what they are.
Meanwhile, the only things they give us as well, 36 more MSs coming in, you know, more and more politicians, more and more bureaucracy, more and more cost to the taxpayer, obviously. And you mentioned they're funding 50 million trees in Uganda or whatever, thinking people are stupid enough that, you know, a tree isn't a tree for some reason. It's going to be better planted in Uganda than it is here, as if all of a sudden trees differ in their biology depending on where they are. And obviously not every tree is the same. That's not the point that I'm making. But then as well, our NHS is one of the great examples, is one of the worst performing, I think it's the worst performing in all of the countries in Britain. Meanwhile, we haven't got the money for that. People are literally dying on the floors of, you know, hospitals and whatever else, and, you know, other times of overcrowding and all the rest of it. But yeah, trees in Uganda and more politicians, you know, more bureaucracy, more corruption. And then somebody said that was really funny, if we take away the Senedd, Reform want to erase Wales by taking away the Senedd. That's what I actually saw somebody say. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. They spent like £19,000, I think it was, on a review of statues and street names in Wales to be removed as well, right? And we were doing a little, like a series of protests a few years ago, saying leave history alone, right? And we were going around and, with the banners and everything. And we were going down to like Carmarthen, places like that, West, and we were finding that some of these statues and, like the blue plaques on people's houses, they've been removing them. They took a statue of that General Picton down and put it away in the museum out the way because he was involved in the slave trade. They are decimating our history, right? And they paid some woman from Cardiff Bay, I think it was 19 grand, to write up a report. So all she did was go on the internet and look up statues and look up their historical meanings and that, find some link to racism, and then ask for them to be removed. So not only are the Senedd wasting money in Africa, spending money on a nation of sanctuary, they're also trying to decimate our history, because if they don't like a historical figure because he was somehow racist or involved in the slave trade, they'll have the statues gone as well.
As if it's going to fix anything.
There's nothing in it for the Welsh people. The Senedd is a house of traitors.
Absolutely. Let's say there is anything to argue that at this point, it's at least not doing what it was there to do, and makes me think it's why so many people, it seems now, are calling for it to be abolished. Not because they necessarily don't like the concept, but they're seeing that it's not working and it's just a massive burden on Wales. It's it's completely needless, at least in its current form. I think we brought up go on.
I'll say the Doge Wales account, at Senedd Waste on Twitter. He's doing a really good job. He finds a lot of footage of them being anti-white, slagging out white people, basically saying that there's no such thing as an illegal immigrant. He finds some really good videos. So if you're on Twitter, have a look at his account. It's at Senedd Waste, I think it is.
Yeah, for a lot of the footage that I get comes from that account, and I cite it in the description when I'm doing the commentary stuff. There's quite often where I get the clips from. Really, really good good account to follow. For the most part, it seems to be doing a lot of good work, and it's given a good breakdown, it seems, of the Caerphilly by-election as well, which sort of leads me to the last thing I was going to ask, and that is, in your current purview, or in your current view, based on how you see things trending or whatever, especially with the run up to Welsh elections we've got next year, do you have an overall positive outlook on it, negative outlook, neutral, in terms of where you see people's attitudes are, in terms of how you see how active people are? What's your general outlook on the future of not only Wales but Britain as a whole at the moment?
Well, I think that Reform could win the next general election, but that's a long way off, that is, right? Unless one gets cold in the meantime, and I think they're going to take a large number of seats in the Senedd. But, and I posted a video from, I can't remember his name now, and he reckons that Drakeford has arranged the system in Wales in such a way that even if Reform win the majority of seats, they can be blocked from having any real power by Labour and Plaid,
Yeah.
So I think they're done wrong people. But the thing is what I've been saying to people, even if Reform didn't have a majority in the Senedd, if we had 15, 20 people in there, right, who were batting for our side, we'd be better off than we are today. Because today we have nobody in there, right? And I think there's one of them from Reform, and she tries to say things, she just gets battered down by all the rest of them. But if we had 15, 20 or more in there, we'd be better off, wouldn't we? And the same for the main parliament. If we have, 100 MPs in there from Reform. At least we'd have somebody in there batting for the British people. You know, even if they're doing a half-baked job, it's better than nothing at all, because these people, they in the Senedd now, they're just like, shall we spend a load of money in Africa? Oh, yeah. Everyone's going, yes, go on, let's do it. There's nobody there to say, no, what are you doing? You know, you're supposed to be representing the Welsh people. No, there's no one there to bat for us, and we need someone in there. So I am positive, and I do, you know, it doesn't get me down when we're protesting, and we should have thousands of people protesting. The fact of the matter is, you can lose your job, right? These lefty twats can get people sacked, right? That's why we haven't got thousands of people. And they go, ha ha, they did a demo, there was only 20 of them, ha 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 ha, right? It doesn't matter. You can see the support when we're on a bridge, right? And there's thousands of people who, although they haven't got the balls to get involved themselves, right? And you can't blame them, because no one wants to be arrested, no one wants to be harassed by the police, and no one wants to lose their job, do they, right? But there's thousands and thousands of people who love the fact that there's people like us who will go out and do a protest and that, right? And they do, like, and that's why I do what I do, you know?
In a way, you're then having to be that voice for those who don't have it. You know, it's just what I'm trying to do with this, you know, with this platform as well. It's like, I don't really have much else that I can, you know, really do at the moment. You know, with you know, you go to apply somewhere nowadays, the minute they find out you're outspoken, especially on this side of politics, you're likely not going to last very long. And that feeds into the cycle as well, because then that thing happens, and then as I mentioned to you before, you don't want to apply. You do want to apply for places, but you don't want to go through that thing of where you go through the interview, and then maybe you get through the interview, maybe you're on your probation period or whatever, and then they bring you in on an unannounced meeting or whatever, and then you know, the next thing you know, you're being told your services aren't required because of your political opinions, and not because you have anything bad to do at the job. You know, you could be the best person ever at the job, and then they let you go purely for your political opinions, and then it's like, oh well, that's going to happen again the next time I apply somewhere else, and it's a vicious cycle. It's another thing that the lefties as well prey on, because then they'll go like, oh, this person doesn't have a job, this thing doesn't have that. I think they're doing that with one of Hugh Anthony at the moment. It was really sad to see that, whether you like the guy or not, whether you agree with his, you know, political views, or whether you agree with his life decisions and whatever, you know, regardless of what you think of the guy, it's not going to have your family blow up like that and on social media. And then they were taking the piss out of him because he doesn't have a job and anything like that. Whereas there've been people that have lost their jobs for these things. There've been people that have lost their lives for these things, and they'll use it as another way to denigrate you as well. It's a really vicious cycle.
I know. Well, this is like, I've lost jobs over the years, right? But the fact is, this is what I said to you earlier when we were talking off the thing. Like, you know, people need to get a trade, right?
Absolutely.
Because I've got a trade, right? Like, I was a plasterer and I'm a painter and decorator, right? I can't be sacked, right? Because I'm self-employed. If the person I was doing work for decided to sack me, which he wouldn't, I can just go and get another job anywhere, right? So people need to get a trade, because when you work for corporations, you work for Amazon, you work for Tesco, you know, you can't, because if they see you on demonstrations, you're going to get sacked. And that's what these lefties do, right? Is they say, look at these cowards with their faces covered. If people wear masks, they go, oh, he's a coward, he's a coward, he's a coward. That's because they want to see your face so they can get you sacked, right? So you're a coward if you wear a mask. If you don't wear a mask, they'll try and get you sacked, right? But like, if you've got a trade, if you're an electrician or a plumber or a chippy or whatever, right? You know, you're bulletproof then, right? This is how I can do what I do, you know, because I have lost jobs in the past, right? And, you know, and it's annoying, and it fucks your life up for 5 minutes, you know? And like you said, if you work in like call centers and places like that, you're going to be, you know, this is why we haven't got big numbers. We've had people join before, and they work for Tesco, and then they're worried and they're ducking and diving and all this sort of thing. You know what I mean? That's why we haven't got big numbers, because we're living in such a tyranny. You can be arrested for saying the wrong thing. You can lose your job, right? But like, you know, people need to get themselves a trade, and then you like, because I could move to like Edinburgh tomorrow when I could get a job within days, right? Because I could just go to agency, or I could just go down to a building site and show them my, you know, what qualifications I've got, and I get a job, you know? So this is what people need to do. If you want to go public like this, get a trade. If you're young now, forget all these computer jobs, because them jobs are going to be taken by AI anyway, right? You need a trade. So that's my advice to people.
That's sage advice, ladies and gentlemen. It's advice that I've had many disputes with my dad over. It was advice he always gave me. I always rejected it. And I'm, you know, really feeling the pinch, so to speak, right now. And it's something I wish that I had done growing up. So again, if you happen to be a young person listening to this, for the most part, maybe, you know, maybe you'll be one of the lucky few that manages to, if you want to be politically active anyway, but maybe you'll be one of the very lucky few that go out and it never happens to you and you never lose a job, anything like that. Maybe you'll be one of the very, very lucky few. But if you want that backbone, not only for good, prosperous work and to give you the freedom to do this kind of stuff, then yeah, like the trades are something I really wish that I'd gone into. So I think that's a great bit of advice, especially for young men.
Even if you didn't want to be politically active, get a trade anyway, because you'll always have work. Because
exactly,
they can't, you know, practical jobs like, you know, all the building trades, they will never be able to get AI to do those jobs. So, you know, just get yourself a trade, whether you want to do political activism or not.
Yeah,
it just makes sense. Because if you wanted to go off and do something else, you can, but you can always fall back on your trade then.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the biggest mistakes that I've ever made. So this is a good opportunity for you in the audience, if you happen to be a young person coming up, learn from the mistakes that I made, absolutely, and that I'm paying for now. Is there anything you'd like to add, Joe? Is there anything you'd like to add? This has been a great conversation. Thank you.
No, well, you know, just like I say, if anyone wants to message me, I've got my email address is on my YouTube. It's Joe Marsh, Welsh Nationalist. You can message me on Telegram if you want to come to a bridge drop. You know, we welcome people. Like, you know, if you don't want to come, you don't have to. But just, you know, share our stuff. If you see us posting videos or streams, just share them. Like, you know, but do something, because, you know, this is a fight for the survival of our people. And you know, that is not a conspiracy theory, it's conspiracy facts.
Absolutely. And you'll find all of Joe's stuff down below as well, guys, in the show notes or in the description. You find his YouTube channel, you find his email. Speaking of emails, if there's anything you want to reach out to the show with, ladies and gentlemen, if there's a tip or story you want to break, if there is some information you want to bring forward, blow the whistle, or add context to anything that we talk about, you know, to further the discussion, etc., you can send it to votv.tips@proton.me. That is votv.tips@proton.me as well. Thank you very much, Joe. This has been a pleasure. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, no worries.
And we'll catch up with you again soon. Have a good one, guys, wherever you are. Thank you for watching. And yeah, we'll see you again soon. Godspeed. There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. My conversation with Mr. Joe Marsh. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you found it useful, obviously. I hope there's a lot of good takeaways in there. I know there's certainly a lot of good takeaways for me, especially learning about sort of like the history of Joe's involvement in politics, how the police have been weaponized, how they want to create friction in your family and all of this stuff. The nuclear family, ladies and gentlemen, is like the bedrock unit of society, and especially against government tyranny. Ever since we've lost our focus on that, primarily driven by like the feminist ideology and stuff like that, which is why I went so hard on it in that one part of the intro segment, is something we really, really need to be focused on, both men and women alike, because we give the government an in to take advantage of us, take advantage of all our future generations because of that. The foundations for this go back way far, you know, to the sexual revolution and first wave feminism and so on. Ultimately, it stems from very, very evil places. So the only way to combat evil is obviously by standing on the side of the good. My question to you, ladies and gentlemen, is more of a hypothetical one looking forward to next year. And it's the case of if reform were to get in and actually form a government and to actually be given access to the levers of power and were able to govern in an effective way, what do you think that would look like? Would it be effective? Would it be enough? Would it be detrimental to Wales and then obviously to the Union? Because obviously Reform are more of a union party, it seems, rather than an outright nationalist one. What do you think that it would look like? Personally, I don't trust Farage, I don't trust Tice, I don't trust Anderson. I see Reform as kind of like a stepping stone and almost like the best of a bad bunch. I think what they're doing with income tax, raising the income tax ceiling is a good start, obviously. One of the ways we've been crippled in terms of economics, and that then directly inhibits your ability to be politically active in many instances because you're not able to embark on initiatives. The state can bankrupt you, all of these things, right? So I like what they're doing on that front. I don't necessarily think they're going to go far enough in other areas, but let me know down below. Otherwise, guys, go and follow Joe on X and on YouTube. You'll find his links down below. Thank you very much for sitting down with me, Joe. Looking forward to the next one. And yeah, you guys take care. Have a good one, guys. We'll see you again soon. Godspeed.